At the edge of the moon, humanity's last hope throws everything they have at the final boss, the Demon Emperor. Their battle ending in a cataclysmic blast of light and darkness, an explosion so massive it rips the very fabric of the battlefield apart. And just like that, the Great War finally reaches its brutal conclusion. The five heroes are left standing, battered but victorious, calling out for their friend Glonn. But their healer, Sovka, is bleeding out and Glonn's magic is not working. The Demon Emperor's final strike was laced with a curse that no healing can fix, leaving Glonn to scream in pure helpless rage at his comrades, who try to save him as he bleeds out from his own wounds. Sovka just smiles, telling him she is content with this ending, but the survivors are devastated, having promised they would all make it back alive. Suddenly, a familiar voice cuts through their grief, and it is the Demon Emperor himself. His very flesh and blood spreading across the ground like a plague. Turns out he had a nasty little failsafe: whoever kills him gets assimilated. And Glonn, the one who dealt the final blow, is now being consumed by demonic energy, a process the Emperor does not call assimilation. Oh no, he prefers the term evolution, smugly announcing that the heroes who defeated him are now worthy of becoming his new body. He is especially interested in Glonn, the strongest human of the bunch. And with a final, agonizing scream, Glonn is dragged into the swirling red mass. Inside this nightmare, he begs his comrade to kill him, choosing death over becoming a puppet. But a towering warrior impales him on a massive blade, telling him not to commit the sin of killing a comrade, the weapon itself seeming to plead with him to stop. A grim standoff between two brothers locked in a tragedy they cannot escape. The warrior mocks Glonn's trembling sword, asking if he has lost his nerve. His silhouette radiating absolute, cold authority against the blood-red sky. While the demonic entity whispers that resistance is futile, his right side is already gone. Glonn has a horrifying realization: it was not his own weakness holding him back. It was the entity's power growing inside him all along. With a final, desperate surge, he drives his sword through the warrior's chest. And as they are locked together, the dying warrior actually praises him for his ruthlessness, revealing the horrific gift he's just unlocked. Mountain of corpses, sea of blood, a power that grows with every life he takes. A surge of dark energy flows into his hand, a raw, terrifying power now his to command. While his companions scream his name in terror, one of them entrusting her sister's safety to the other before they are both consumed, a final, selfless act. Glonn's transformation is brutal and quick, his shock turning into a feral, blood-crazed grin. His body erupting with blood-red tendrils as he lets out an inhuman roar. He has become a monster, having traded 3 lives just to free his right hand. But in his mind, one hand is all he needs to solve the final problem, his solution being to swing his massive blade right at his own neck. The entity inside him has had enough of this resistance, its demonic fist shattering Glonn's holy sword with a single punch, the warrior's face contorted in fury as the legendary weapon flies apart. The holy sword Sulla now utterly destroyed. The shadow entity boasts of its invincible shell, a fortress no weapon can harm, but a focused glint in Glonn's eye suggests he has other plans, taunting the demon that if the sword could destroy it, he would have done so already, screaming in defiance as his chest wound bleeds out. But then someone else intervenes, a spectral hand reaching out in the darkness, causing a violent, shattering crack in reality itself. And in the aftermath, a lone figure stands in a sea of red. A ghostly vision of the warrior fades, lamenting that he was born to kill and fated to die by killing. His chest now a hollowed-out void, regretting that he could not save anyone he was meant to protect. His final moments filled with nothing but sorrow and defeat. 5 years pass, and a lone figure kneels before a colossal demonic statue in a red wasteland. That same 5 years later, a dark, horn-like tower looms against a starry night sky. While deep in a forest, some low-level demons are getting ready for a party. One idiot complaining he was only told to bring 4 human girls and 1 demon kin. His insectoid boss telling him to shut up and get in line, because tonight is the 5th anniversary of the Demon Emperor's death, and this year's memorial is going to be unforgettable. The ritual begins with the insect demon ready to slaughter 4 pure offerings, which he does with a single brutal swing of his scythe arm. The scene a tangled mess of vines and monstrous carnage, his next order being to spill demon blood to honor their fallen leader. And the final sacrifice is a pale, bandaged man suspended helplessly in thorny vines, who suddenly opens his glowing green eyes, completely disoriented, wondering where he is and how he is even alive. Right before the insect demon shoves a blade to his throat, telling the trash not to move. The demon mocks him as a nameless, weak creature, and the man has a shocking realization: he's been reborn as a demon. The bug man leaning in to say that being a sacrifice is the greatest honor he will ever achieve as the demon prepares another glowing strike. The man suddenly moves, the blade slicing through empty air. The insectoid is furious, yelling that the prisoner ruined the whole ceremony. But a flicker of fear crosses its face as it wonders if the dodge was intentional. The man looks up, his eyes burning with intensity, asking if the half-breed truly does not recognize him, his terrifying aura reflected in the demon's multifaceted eye. And as a dark shadow looms, the demon screams out a single name in pure horror: Glonn. The scene flashes to a massive ship on a stormy sea, with that very same insect demon getting smacked on the head and ordered to go row like the rookie he is. Back in the past, that insected soldier marches into battle, part of a massive dark armada emerging from a turbulent ocean. The Lin clan launching a surprise attack on humanity with a legendary trident, led by the Sea Dragon King himself, Ao Xing. The assault is so sudden that only a single human warrior is there to meet them, standing on a tiny wooden raft, and it is none other than Glonn, the healer, ready to face an entire fleet alone. The Demon King gives the order to attack. And Glonn grips the hilt of his dark, heavy sword, the next scene showing the silent, bloody aftermath of his work. A wounded soldier reports that everyone died except for one of the demon lords. A quick tally confirming 4 demon kings are dead, with only the eternal demon king surviving Glonn's rampage. A close-up shows our hero's face splattered with blood, his eyes burning with cold fury, standing alone in the rain, overlooking the absolute destruction he has caused. Flashing back to the present, the insect demon stares at him in pure dread. Just before Glonn tears it apart, coolly noting the weak points in a crustacean demon's joints, he finally puts it all together. He's been resurrected, but his ultimate mountain of corpses talent has been reset to level 1, just in time for a horde of demon lackeys to charge, screaming for his head. He effortlessly slashes through the first one, his blade a flash of light as he obliterates their ranks. Pausing only to note that these weaklings barely give any XP, his power level only rising to 9 after 9 kills. But his quiet moment of XP grinding is interrupted by a giant panic centipede demon, which immediately tries to scuttle away, leaving a trail of thorny vines in its wake, only to get pinned to the floor by Glonn's blade with a sickening crunch. The creature thrashes and screams for its life, a truly pathetic display. And Glonn stands over the field of bodies, the last monster finally silenced. He's heavily wounded, covered in bandages and clutching some scrap of paper, forcing him to use a healing spell just to patch himself up. But as the green light fades, his hand starts twisting into a mass of writhing snakes. He watches in pure horror as it morphs into a monstrous, scaled claw, the reality of his situation finally crashing down on him, and he collapses in the pool of his enemy's blood. Realizing he was not resurrected at all, he was reincarnated into a demon's body. The ultimate demon hunter, now trapped in the form of the very thing he despises, this shameful, lowly race he dedicated his entire life to destroying. He lets out a scream of pure fury, his eyes glowing with righteous hatred, even trying to choke the life out of his new, disgusting body, spitting blood on the floor in a fit of absolute self-loathing. Unfortunately for him, the giant centipede is still clinging to life, and it chooses this exact moment to start talking trash, calling him the weakest demon and promising a world of pain, all while Glonn is having a full-blown existential crisis. The centipede thinking this kid looks a little different than usual, but a good scare should put him back in his place. In his mind, Glonn is back in the fight, a warrior of humanity tearing demons apart. But now the roles are reversed, and the monster is him. And as he reflects on his life's mission to slaughter every last demon, a grim, twisted smile spreads across his new-fanged face. What is there to complain about? He vaguely recalls hearing it has been 5 years since he and the Demon Emperor took each other out. His first priority is finding a place to lay low and figure out what the hell has happened to the world. And he recognizes the landscape below, the massive skull of a giant troll he once fought, which the new generation of demons has conveniently turned into a military stronghold. The sheer scale of the skeleton is a grim reminder of his past battles, but thankfully he remembers a hidden cave nearby, his old hideout, which seems untouched and safe enough for a temporary base. Alone by the fire, he settles into the silence of his new life, his glowing green eyes reflecting the flickering flames, a deep melancholy setting in. As his now monstrous claws carefully carve a tiny wooden figure of a knight, his mind drifts back to his old party, to a time he carried them through a river of lava, to the time they made him a ridiculous leaf outfit because his pants got burned, and how they all pointed and laughed at his expense, a memory that annoyed him then but feels like a lifetime ago now. The warmth of the past fades, leaving him alone in the cold, dark cave. Just a monster with a clawed hand, holding a fragile memory of the man he used to be. He picks up the small wooden knight, a symbol of his lost humanity, arranging the figures of his fallen comrades on the stone floor, thinking back on that final battle, wondering if he could have done more, if he could have saved them, the regret burning in his eyes. He holds one of the figures over the fire, letting the memory of their sacrifice be consumed by the flames. His own power, the mountain of corpses, a testament to his loss. He realizes countless others must have suffered in the 5 years he was gone, so if he is a demon now, he will use it to destroy them from the inside. Suddenly, a sharp headache hits and memories that are not his start flooding in. Flashes of this body's previous life, being kicked and abused by a stronger demon, forced to work as a lowly serf on a farm simply for being a weak Serpent-Blood. Then he sees a demon teacher giving a lecture to a class of recruits, with students complaining about theory and wanting to get to the practical lessons. And it hits him, demons have an education system now. These things were supposed to be mindless weapons born only for slaughter, yet in just 5 years they've built a full-blown civilization right on top of the world he died to protect. He knows this is all his fault for not being strong enough to finish the job back then. And he makes a new vow in this life: he will become stronger than ever before and annihilate every last one of them. The borrowed memories give him a starting point, a crude map to a place called Recruit Training Camp 2, and just like that, he's standing in the dusty yard of the training camp, blending in with the other demon recruits. An instructor is yelling about the state of the continent, clearly annoyed at having to repeat himself. While Glonn listens from the sidelines, piecing together the current political situation. Learning that after the Demon Emperor's death, the demons organized into 5 courts and fought humanity to a stalemate. The instructor then grabs a smaller recruit, slamming his head into the map to make a point about the day's main topic, talent marks, explaining that every demon is born with an innate ability unlike those inferior humans, and that using these skills consumes an internal energy called mark power. He points to a chart showing the power levels from 1 mark to 6 mark, dismissing anything higher as irrelevant for these rookies. Proudly declaring himself a 2-mark warrior and telling the recruits they will have to suffer to get to his level. Glonn checks his own hand, seeing a single green symbol. He is only a 1 mark and he will need to test this body's power when he gets a chance. The instructor explains that reaching 2 marks is the real goal because that is when you unlock your ultimate technique. At that moment, a big blue-skinned demon starts shoving his way through the crowd, knocking Glonn aside without a second thought. And everyone clears a path, recognizing him as the camp's genius recruit. The blue guy sneers at Glonn, wondering who let a serf in and telling him to go back to farming with the other trash. And the instructor, a true model of leadership, just yells for someone to kick the serf out before starting practical training. He lectures that pure power does not decide every fight, insisting that technique and tactics are just as important as he gestures to a large, covered cage. Which is all the excuse the blue demon needs to grab Glonn by the collar, grinning, just as the instructor unveils their training dummy, a massive chained beast called a howl demon. The instructor taunts the recruits, saying this thing could tear them all apart and their only job is to find its single weak point. Glonn just stands there, completely bored by the whole display, already thinking about leaving, lamenting that he cannot just slaughter everyone here to level up his talent. Because making a scene with his current low power level would just be asking for trouble. Suddenly, the howl demon's massive red eye snaps open, its gaze locking onto the crowd with chilling intelligence, and it begins to struggle against its chains, making the instructor nervous. The instructor tries to reassert control, boasting that he has the beast by the throat, its only weakness, so its 3-mark strength is useless, but the beast just lets out a low, rumbling chuckle. And then it speaks, mocking the instructor's naivety and calling the new generation of demons pathetic. Turns out it has been playing dumb for weeks on a secret mission from its master, and wiping out this camp is just a bonus. Before anyone can react, the howl demon shatters its restraints, unleashing a devastating attack that rips through the training grounds, sending the recruits into a state of pure, unadulterated panic, as the yard instantly transforms into a scene of absolute carnage. One of the recruits immediately bolts, thinking he is not about to waste his secret weapon on this mess. But his escape is cut short as Glonn steps directly into his path, blocking the way, causing the terrified deserter to collapse, screaming at him to move. A moment later, Glonn calmly wipes a smear of blood off his hand, the coward no longer a problem, and turns to face the howl demon, which now stares him down across the field of fallen demons. The howl demon roars forward, all teeth and dark energy, promising there is no escape. Down on the ground, the blue-skinned demon watches the charge, realizing it is time to use his own secret weapon. But Glonn just stands there, a looming shadow with burning red eyes casting a ridiculously intimidating aura, completely turning the tables with nothing but a power stance and a whole lot of nerve. His own eyes glowing with a faint green light as he channels some serious power. And the charging howl demon freezes mid-stride, absolutely baffled by this new energy. It cannot understand why this weakling shows zero fear, wondering if he somehow knows its true weakness. A weakness it thought was long forgotten, buried with its 9 dim-witted brothers years ago. In a desperate show of force, it slams a limb into the ground, kicking up a storm of dust, trying to convince itself this is all just an elaborate bluff. From a distance, Glonn is just a tiny silhouette against this massive, threatening shadow he is projecting, his eyes glowing intensely as he delivers a simple final warning: take one more step and you die. The howl demon scoffs, preparing a massive attack to call him on it, ready to unleash its full authority. But Glonn remains completely unfazed, his tattered clothes the only sign of the battle that just happened. A massive blast of energy erupts, but it is not from Glonn. Because the howl demon is already high in the sky, fleeing for its life, it decides the risk is not worth the reward, leaving the blue-skinned demon on the ground utterly speechless. Glonn then turns to the fallen demon, extending a blood-stained hand to help him up, an offer that immediately puts the demon on high alert, thinking this is some kind of trick, because a second sealed genius like himself could never be helped by a mere serf. So Glonn just rips off a piece of the demon's fancy clothes to wipe his hand clean. With the job done, he stands there calmly while the bandaged man just stares him down with cold, green eyes. The blue demon explodes with rage, calling him a dirt farmer, but Glonn simply turns his back, completely unimpressed. Suddenly, he is surrounded by the other recruits, all demanding to know how he scared off the howling demon. A big green warrior demands he spill his secrets, so Glonn offers a helpful tip from the Anti-Demon Tactical Manual, explaining that howling demons have terrible vision and you just have to stand still. A lie the entire group immediately buys. With a sinister grin, he tells them to go ahead and try it, inviting them to die one by one. The blue demon, still sulking on the ground, cannot believe the sheer arrogance of this guy, and when his lackeys check on him, he pretends he is just tired, not that his legs are pure jelly. So he orders 5 of his followers to trail Glonn and give him the most humiliating death imaginable. The assassins grin with malicious intent, promising their boss a satisfying show. High above a misty village, the goon squad prepares to strike, watching Glonn walk alone into the fog. Their leader, a grotesque demon with holes in his stomach, creating the mist to hide their attack, while the others keep a close watch, making sure their target does not slip away. As they pursue him, they note his power level is pathetically weak, underestimating him completely. Splitting up to flush him out, only to realize the mist is getting thicker, almost like smoke. When the mist-making demon suddenly collapses, screaming that Glonn's snake bit his stomach, a sharp, green toxic force pierces right through his thick hide, causing him to detonate in a flash of dark blood and poisonous energy, and the resulting explosion engulfs his four horrified comrades in a swirling green vortex. Caught in the toxic smoke, two of the demons clutch their faces, screaming that their eyes are burning. The poison is so thick they cannot see a thing, stumbling around in agony. From the shadows, Glonn watches them, deciding these five idiots are perfect test subjects for his new powers. He activates his ancient serpent bloodline's thermal vision, letting him see them perfectly through the chaos, then manifests serpent-like tendrils from his body, striking them down with pinpoint accuracy. He reflects on how tactically flexible this new bloodline is compared to his old life, as the demons panic in the background. One of the last two demons lets out a furious howl, undergoing a violent transformation, a move Glonn observes with calm, predatory eyes, entirely unbothered. The two red-skinned brothers taunt him, saying he is nothing without his poison mist, and the angrier of the two starts charging up a massive attack. He lunges forward, swinging a colossal black blade, putting all his momentum into a single, devastating strike. The blue demon who survived the ambush watches in absolute shock, but Glonn's expression is cold, his glowing green eyes completely focused. He intercepts the massive weapon with ease, their powers colliding in a spray of blood. The attacker's face contorts in pure terror at this impossible display of strength, and his last surviving buddy immediately drops to his knees, begging for his life and blaming the blondie for everything. An excuse that Glonn finds thoroughly unconvincing. Desperate, the demon offers up a new deal. He will lead Glonn to Blondie's secret treasure cave. This finally gets Glonn's attention, since he needs rare treasures to sacrifice for his molting ability and level up. The demon guide leads him to a towering waterfall, promising they are almost there, and points out the hidden cave right behind the cascade of water. The moment the location is revealed, Glonn appears behind him, his hand clamped around the guide's throat. With brutal efficiency, he unleashes a barrage of projectiles, obliterating the demon on the spot, and calmly walks into the cave, leaving a trail of bodies behind him without a second thought. Inside, he finds a single tiny treasure chest surrounded by discarded arrows. Far away, a colossal floating skull receives a report about the training camp incident. Its shadowy leader learning about a mere serf who managed to scare off a howling demon. A piece of news that gets a smirk from a purple-haired female demon with piercing golden eyes. The territory leader known as Bone Crusher, who is clearly very interested in this development. Back in the cave, Glonn is disappointed, finding only one small box in such a huge cavern. He opens it to find a simple cloth pouch, but a voice from the shadows commands him to put it down. Blondie himself lunges out of the darkness, moving so fast Glonn is forced to drop the chest, his eyes blazing with fury as he screams about someone daring to touch his things. Glonn counters instantly with a devastating kick, shattering the demon's leg, and Blondie recoils in shock, realizing Glonn is a completely different person now, far stronger than before. He knows he cannot win a head-on fight in this narrow cave, especially with his leg busted. So he makes a break for it, blasting away from the waterfall at top speed. He fully transforms, sprouting massive wings with his rock feather garment to ensure his escape. But Glonn just watches him go, muttering another avian demon with cold disdain. The sight of those wings triggers something in him, a deep-seated agony. As the memory of avian demons looms over him like a dark, jagged shadow, he breaks into a dead sprint, building up incredible momentum, and launches himself into the air, screaming that avian demons are the most deserving of death. With blinding speed, he catches the fleeing demon midair with a brutal punch to the face, sending them both plummeting through the sky in a storm of golden feathers. He strikes again, his fist crashing into the demon's head with bone-shattering force, continuing the relentless assault as they fall, giving him no chance to recover. The force of the final blow sends Glonn tumbling away, flying towards a lake below, where he splashes down hard, skidding across the surface as he braces for impact. He rises from the water, bloodied but not broken, his eyes glowing with lethal intensity. Hovering above, the winged demon mocks him for his bad luck, landing right in the middle of a bale lake. Just then, dark, serpent-like creatures erupt from the water, surrounding Glonn completely. He is instantly ensnared by dozens of writhing, centipede-like gallbladder bugs, and the demon gloats from above, promising to enjoy watching him get ripped to shreds. He even gives a little history lesson on the powerful ancient clan whose remains created this deadly lake. But instead of panicking, Glonn just bites down on one of the creatures with savage ferocity, tearing the parasites off his body as a glowing sigil appears on his neck. And with a surge of dark power, he shatters the remaining bugs in a lethal vortex. From the sky, the demon's arrogant smirk vanishes, replaced by pure shock as he whispers, "Such strength!" The winged demon just keeps running his mouth, mocking him for having far more strength, but Glonn does not say a word, just extends a hand as a vicious green energy begins to glow, unleashing a storm of dark, serpentine whips that tear through the remaining bugs in a spray of gore. The demon tries to fly away, a golden trail marking his panicked escape as the dark tendrils give chase. And he is still taunting him, calling him a filthy farmer who is too slow to even haul dung. Right as a blur of golden light slices clean through Glonn's dark whips. Turns out the demon's not just all talk, zipping around and calling Glonn's attacks weak enough to loosen soil, promising to wear him down until he is nothing but dust, as a dense ball of coiling, writhing tendrils forms in the air, which then explodes into a chaotic mass of green-eyed snake heads. They descend like a black rain from the sky, a seemingly endless swarm. But behind his hood, Glonn's eyes just burn brighter, his speed increasing exponentially, and a single supercharged green tendril whips through the air with terrifying force, carving a massive bloody X right across the demon's face. The winged man clutches his side, sputtering in disbelief at how Glonn is getting faster and faster, while the ground is now just a wet mess of serpentine bodies and blood. And Glonn reveals he has absorbed their power, unlocking his second seal, just enough to deal with this annoying filthy bird. His face finally emerges from the shadows, his green eyes glowing as he makes a simple promise. Next time he blinks, the demon's head is coming off. The demon pulls out a bow, completely rattled and calling him insane. But Glonn is already moving, a literal streak of lightning closing the distance before the demon can even finish his sentence. In a moment of pure desperation, the demon screams, unleashing a crackling purple spear, remembering a magic arrow he picked up years ago, thinking fate must have saved it for this very moment. A pair of piercing yellow eyes watch the arrow fly, and it strikes Glonn dead center in the chest, shocking him completely. But instead of dying, black serpents just erupt from his body, coiling around the arrow's light. He goes limp, falling through some kind of ethereal blue space. His body a massive, dark sphere of snakes that plunges into glowing cyan water. A single clawed hand reaching up before it too disappears beneath the electrified surface. At the shore, the winged warrior stares, wondering if his super special thunder arrow actually did the trick, just as his pink-haired sister runs up asking if he is okay, and he plays it cool, saying he just dealt with a little thief trying to steal their stuff. He stares at his hand, clutching a small red pouch with a cold look in his eyes, thinking he'd die to protect this pouch because it is for treating his sister's eyes. Meanwhile, underwater, Glonn is having a revelation, wondering why his body is reacting so strangely to this magic arrow, and his own serpent eye seems to merge with the primal energy of his bloodline, triggering a blinding explosion of pure white light. An otherworldly symbol forms in the void, a giant eye looking down on his transformation. And as the light fades, a newly powered-up Glonn emerges, understanding everything. Realizing the rare treasure arrow tempted his body's primal desires, forcing an automatic awakening. What a greedy serpent. His ancient serpent bloodline killing power forms a pulsating purple sphere, crackling with energy as it undergoes its one serpent molt, and then erupts in a violent explosion of jagged purple lightning. On the beach, the two siblings are relaxing, figuring their enemy is dead and gone at the bottom of the lake, the brother even touching his wounded cheek, thinking they can finally rest easy. That is when a bolt of lightning cracks the sky and a clawed foot slams onto the shore, sending the two of them scrambling as the wind whips into a frenzy. The winged demon gasps, recognizing the energy as savage dark thunder. Just as a swirling vortex of intense purple lightning erupts from the water, exploding in a massive, blinding flash, the siblings are thrown back by the sheer force of the blast, and the brother shouts that something jumped out of the lightning, his sister pointing a trembling finger and whispering. There, in the middle of the stormy sea, a dark warrior stands on a rock pedestal, crackling with raw electricity, and the winged demon's eyes go wide with terror, muttering, "No way." Glonn is cloaked in shadow, a terrifying figure surrounded by violent purple bolts, leaving the two siblings standing defensively on the shore, looking absolutely petrified. As Glonn, now in his fierce thunder form, calmly announces he's kept them waiting for their death, he calls his previous underestimation a mistake, which just sets the winged demon off, who charges in, screaming about him being a cocky farmer. And a chaotic battle erupts, a clash of purple lightning against golden fury. The demon's face is pure shock as a massive wave of purple energy completely overwhelms him, sending him flying backwards, screaming that he was tricked. A brutal impact follows, a blast of purple energy shattering his wing in a shower of gore, and Glonn just looms over him, disappointed that a punk of this level is not even enough to test his new abilities. He then fires a test shot into the water, a concentrated beam that shatters the surface with immense force. And the blue demon just cries, face pale with pure despair, now running for his life across a desolate landscape in the pouring rain. He collapses face down in the water, spirit completely broken, wishing he was just a little stronger, because he knows that after he is dead, Glonn will not spare his sister. That single thought is enough, his body erupting in a brilliant golden aura as he lets out a defiant roar. A smirk plays on his lips as he feels the new power surge. Now encased in a glowing mantle of feathers, his dove feather garb, authority awakened at last. His sister looks on with sad eyes, knowing he has finally unlocked his true power, and he tells her he will not hold her back anymore as his dominating demon eye awakens too. With it, he summons a massive, terrifying beast that hovers over them, ready for battle, roaring as the beast unleashes a barrage of golden projectiles called the Falling Sky Arrow. Glonn just stands in the rain, unfazed, his body crackling with purple lightning, crouching low as he prepares to launch himself from the water's surface, and a violent explosion of white and purple energy tears through the darkness as he soars upwards to meet the rain of golden arrows head-on. The clash is immediate and brutal, Glonn landing a devastating punch to the demon's jaw, followed by an explosive collision of purple and gold energy that shatters the air itself. And Glonn maneuvers through the chaos, dodging sharp, dark spikes from the summoned beast before unleashing his own attack. Viper Bite, a storm of purple lightning fangs. The demon brother, consumed by golden fire, screams that this is his chance, using the chaos as cover for a sneak attack, a massive, swirling drill of yellow energy, and Glonn meets the firestorm with his own lightning, a cataclysmic collision of elements. The demon channels all his remaining power, a technique called Spiked Spiral, a glowing crest appearing on his forehead as he unleashes his ultimate attack, the Cloud-Weaving Storm. He is convinced this attack is unblockable, a desperate all-in gamble, and Glonn is actually impressed, calling it a truly unstoppable move. Right before he stops it, with a swirling abyss storm of his own, he effortlessly counters the massive golden blast. Leaving the brother defeated in the water, his sister crawling frantically towards him in the rain. He tries to give her the red pouch, telling her to take it and run, but she refuses to leave him, her trembling hand clutching the precious, blood-stained bag. But a shadowy leg wrapped in purple lightning steps into view and she looks up in horror. Her hand goes limp, dropping the pouch, which spills its contents into the water, a dozen fresh human eyes. The brother confesses his sister has a disease that requires her to eat them, a problem Glonn notes could have been fixed with a simple healing spell, and now they are huddled together, begging for mercy, promising they do not want the eyes anymore. So Glonn asks them one final question: did those people beg you for mercy when you gouged out their eyes? The two siblings just stare back, eyes hollow and dark, the girl whispering in total shock. But Glonn's shadowy form simply holds out a clawed hand, demanding a one-word answer. And the pair can only huddle together, completely broken by the question, until the sister finally looks up, her face a mask of trauma, and says she forgot. Glonn just picks a green apple out of the stream, realizing he'd been overthinking it all, because demons with civilization are still just demons, trading mindless violence for calculated cruelty. And with a sharp crack, he bites into the fruit, his pointed teeth on full display. This new fierce thunder form is a massive power-up, but it burns through his energy like crazy. So for now, he has to be smart about when he unleashes the storm. At that exact moment, a demon chief and his subordinate arrive at the crime scene, finding the two siblings floating in the river, both heads vaporized by a single, brutally efficient lightning strike. And a new player steps onto the field, a tall, armored woman who declares an uninvited guest is on her turf. Deep in the woods, a lone silhouette with glowing eyes watches and waits, while the chief puts her territory on lockdown, vowing to personally investigate any more mysterious deaths, completely unaware that the killer is walking right down the path, disguised as a humble farmer with a hoe. Her golden eyes narrow, spotting the lone figure on the road, and she immediately confronts him, demanding to know who he is and what he is doing. But when he claims to be a farm slave, she remembers hearing about some weakling who scared off another demon, so she shoves him aside, deciding there are more important things to deal with, like kicking him to the ground because she is suddenly craving a fruit pie. Glonn hits the dirt, pinned under her boot, playing the part of a helpless victim, while she looms over him, threatening to turn him into a tasty dish if he does not find her some good fruit. And as her squad walks away, he melts back into the forest, mission accomplished. Turns out that little shove was all he needed to get a read on her power. And the news is not great, she is a 4th seal defense type, a terrible matchup for his speed-based attacks, leaving him facing a walking fortress with no obvious cracks in her armor. It is a real shame too, because killing a demon of her rank would give his power a massive boost. But with the raw power gap between them, a straight fight is just a fancy way to commit suicide, which does not do much to stop the predatory part of his brain from screaming for a taste of her power. A new hunt has begun, one that requires patience and a perfect plan. Meanwhile, a purple-haired demoness is flipping through a book on special abilities, trying to identify the type of lightning that fried the two siblings. Her search leading her to a particularly nasty authority known as the Sea of Corpses and Blood, but she quickly dismisses it, convinced it could not be the cause. Glonn's plan is simple: find a way to get strong enough for a one-hit sneak attack, all without raising her suspicions. And his first opportunity arrives in the form of two demons pulling a cart through the woods, convinced they have found the perfect hidden spot to conduct their shady business. A spot so hidden that a predator can strike from the shadows without anyone knowing. And right on cue, Glonn appears behind them like a ghost. Thinking they are absolutely right, this place is so well hidden he can use them for target practice with no witnesses. Down in a rocky cavern, a horned guard stands watch before the massive doors of an underground black market. The guard tries to stop a human from entering, but the man flashes a skull-marked token, granting him access, revealing a sprawling, torchlit cavern teeming with demons and beast folk. And Glonn casually strolls inside, ready to see what this cesspit has to offer, joining a crowd of creatures grumbling about how secretive all their business has become lately. One merchant is trying to offload some anxy steel, a supposedly top-tier material, but his customers are skeptical, pointing out that no one even knows how to forge the stuff. While another lizard-like demon hawks illegal seal power potions brewed from human hearts, a real jackpot if the chief does not find out. Turns out the chief banned all trade of human products 2 years ago, something about resource conservation, a move so out of character for a demon that Glonn immediately smells a conspiracy. Just then, a red-skinned merchant announces new goods, a line of human captives, most with their eyes missing, offered at a bargain price. And the crowd gets angry, recognizing the handiwork of that brother-sister duo who just got vaporized. But the merchant just grins, promising a great deal on the damaged goods. That is when Glonn steps in, declaring he will take all of them, shocking the merchant who scoffs at his dirt-poor appearance. So Glonn offers a trade, a legendary technique called the Fierce Thunder Arrow, for every single captive. The merchant agrees instantly, sending the humans outside while he takes Glonn to a private room to finalize the details. And the poor captives are herded away by a rope, including a small blindfolded boy, who stumbles and crawls along the rough ground trying to keep up, until he collapses, his legs scraped and bleeding from the cruel treatment. The lizard merchant watches them go, annoyed he did not get to keep one for himself, completely oblivious to the slaughter about to go down. Behind closed doors, the red merchant thinks he's got Glonn right where he wants him, peeking through the crack with a greedy, goblin-like smile on his face. Totally isolated in a dark cave with only 2 flickering torches for light, a sudden blast of violent purple energy erupts from the doorway, engulfing him in pure agony. He is pinned to the ground, wailing as lightning tears him apart, and then the doors slam shut, leaving only silence and spreading pools of blood on the stone floor. Moments later, the doors creak open and Glonn steps out, a bandaged silhouette against a blinding light, revealing a room full of bodies, a testament to a swift and total massacre. Outside, the green-skinned creature leading the captives away tells them all to stay quiet, threatening to rip out their tongues and roast them if they make a sound. And in the next instant, Glonn appears and cleanly decapitates the monster in a massive spray of blood. His eyes glow green as he looks at his hand, feeling the surge of new power. While the little blonde girl he just saved watches in absolute horror, the creature's head lying at her feet. And trembling, she looks up at her blood-soaked savior and whispers that he is a demon among demons. A strange status window pops up, showing that his Happy Day authority failed to activate, a rare power that apparently only has negative effects. But Glonn ignores it, standing over the 2 small children still bound by a rope. And he reaches down, taking a small cloth bundle from the boy's hands, coldly asking if it is his. The boy, still blindfolded, just nods nervously and smiles. So Glonn tells them to follow him, but the girl timidly asks if he's going to hold their leash, and he just tosses the rope aside, stating he does not like seeing people tied up. Back at a makeshift camp, a few small wooden figurines sit on a tub, little tokens of a life almost lost. One by one, the rescued men cry out in joy as Glonn's healing magic restores their sight. And while they thank him profusely, he just tells them to be quiet so he can focus on healing a child. But the little girl is not satisfied, demanding to know why a demon would save them from other demons. And his answer sends a chill down her spine. "Because I wanted to," followed by a sharp command to shut up while he is busy. With everyone healed, he sits down and calmly thinks out loud about how he should send them off, plunging the entire camp into a terrifying, awkward silence. As the survivors wait to see if their savior is about to become their executioner, the little girl cannot stand the tension, feeling she has to do something. And a light bulb goes off over her head, a truly brilliant idea. So she steps forward and proudly announces she's going to tell everyone a joke. She sets the scene in a tavern where the 3rd drink is half price. And with a little peace sign, she delivers the punchline. A man walks in and orders a glass of the 2nd drink, which is met with stunned, dead-eyed silence from the humans, while the girl just stands there holding her pose, waiting for the laughter that will never come. A single sound echoes through the camp, and it is not from the humans, who are all thinking the demon race has a truly bizarre sense of humor, but the girl is overjoyed, thinking someone finally gets her. But in that exact moment, a dark, shadowy entity lunges forward, wrapping around the little girl as she lets out a blood-curdling scream. And the scream is not just for show, as one of the humans is suddenly getting constricted by a shadowy serpent with glowing green eyes. Pinned against a stone wall, the guy frantically struggles, screaming out for his benefactor, a truly terrible choice of last words, because his supposed savior is just sitting on a bench, coolly watching the chaos he unleashed with a look of pure contempt. Serpents draped over his shoulders as he sneers about the venomous hearts of the demon race, a masterclass in hypocrisy given his current accessories. And he promises them the most painful death imaginable as a lesson for being so foolishly trusting. The entire camp is a wreck, bodies scattered around a dying fire, with only the little blonde girl left standing against the dark-haired man. His glowing eyes lock onto her, coldly asking why she is resisting the poison when he's being so generous with his life lessons. But through her tears, she calls his bluff, pointing out he never intended to actually kill them, just knock them out. His face remains a mask of cold indifference, his single glowing eye giving away nothing. Oh, she doubles down, yelling that you do not tell dead people to remember a lesson, and that he's just trying to teach them to be wary of other demons. Her final argument being that she trusts him completely, because he is a good member of the demon race. A kid snores on the ground with a snot bubble, completely oblivious as the man flatly asks what she wants from him. With stars in her eyes, she declares she wants to follow him, an offer he immediately shuts down by calling her useless baggage. But she is not giving up, proudly announcing she is a swordsmith named Sulla who will not drag him down. And that name stops him cold, his mind flashing as he recognizes her as Alexius's granddaughter, which makes Sulla light up, asking how he knows her grandpa, and he admits they are old acquaintances, even revealing he held her as a baby years ago. The story rewinds to a rustic blacksmith shop, smoke curling from its chimney. Inside, an old blacksmith with a pipe lays down his two rules. He does not forge for kinslayers or those who slaughter the innocent. Then he looks the man dead in the eye, telling him he reeks of the blood of both. The blacksmith tries to throw him out, but the young man mentions he was sent by a sister Daya to get a legendary greatsword, a name that makes the old smith pause and ask if he is from the sect of mercy, and after a nod, the blacksmith sizes him up, finally deciding that if Sister Daya vouched for him, he cannot be all bad, and agrees to forge the sword to repay a favor. He holds up a small stone statue of the god of mercy, planning to use it as the sword's handguard, telling the young man to be patient as a blade like this takes time, but he's welcome to check in. And he mentions he is about to become a grandpa, needing to find a scholar for a birth blessing. The scene shifts to a figure kneeling in heavy snow, a picture of absolute grief, where we find the blacksmith in a desolate wasteland, a finished greatsword plunged into the frozen earth beside him. And as the cloaked man approaches, the blacksmith cradles a crying infant, asking where his sword is, gesturing for him to just take the blade himself, his focus entirely on the baby. Revealing the name Sulla is engraved on it, the name of both his granddaughter and the sword. Alexius, his face hidden in shadow, asks what happened to her parents. And the answer is brutal: they were killed when a pack of beasts calling themselves the demon race stormed the village, slaughtering every single person they saw. A story that makes Alexius realize those were the same creatures that killed Sister Daya and his own lover, his eye glowing red with rage and grief as he confirms they all died at the hands of demons. And now this child Sulla is left an orphan without even a birth blessing to her name. So Alexius looks down at the baby with a deep, sorrowful expression, gently touching her head and giving her his own blessing, wishing her a life free of suffering. And then he adds a chilling postscript that her name will accompany him on a killing spree, as a horned demon appears, musing that he probably does not need mercy anymore and offering to change the sword's handguard. But Alexius just takes the massive blade, dragging it through the snow away from the ruined village, slamming it into the ground as he redefines the very meaning of mercy, calling the sect of mercy's healing nothing but a self-deceiving band-aid. Because his plan is much more proactive, vowing that before the wicked can even think about hurting the innocent, he will slaughter them in droves, a brutal montage of his blade tearing through demon flesh, cutting down legions of them in the blood-stained snow until their corpses pile into mountains, leaving him standing alone atop a monument of the annihilated, calling that true mercy. Back in the present, Sulla is calling him Uncle Gelong, wondering why he looks like a young demon instead of a man in his 30s, and he just brushes it off as having a good skincare routine, turning the question back on her. But she is just as evasive, vowing not to return home until she has forged the ultimate demon-slaying blade, her determined little reflection captured in his piercing green eye, so he encourages her to keep trying, which absolutely thrills her, his hand tightly gripping a piece of wood as he writes something down, telling her it is good to have a passion, something he is clearly envious of. Turns out he was writing a note for the other kids, claiming to be the vampire knight and giving them directions to safety. And the moment they wake up, they are ecstatic, realizing they were saved by a legendary student of the demon-slaying maniac Gelong. The kids rest on a hillside, safe and sound thanks to his little white lie. One of them still in awe that the legends are true. Meanwhile, Gelong gets to work, dropping a heavy anvil on the ground, telling Sulla he has dealt with the other survivors and brought back some tools, and she proudly shows off the simple forge she built in the meantime, a piece of cake for her. But she is bummed that the best material, Anxi steel, is in a mine occupied by demons, leaving her with all skill and no resources. So Gelong casually holds out a chunk of the exact same rare metal, much to her shock, explaining he grabbed it earlier, which she calls being a master of swiping things. And when he questions if she can even forge it, she boasts she is one of only 3 people in the world who can. The third person he reveals with glowing eyes being the current war demon king, Agricola. Sulla realizes the gravity of that, knowing Agricola is the strongest demon king in history and that only 6 Anxi steel weapons even exist. A fact that hits Gelong hard. He needs to get stronger and fast to deal with a threat like that, so he tells Sulla he's going back out to continue his hunt. While deep in a cave, a demon reports to his chief about a massacre at the black market, getting ordered to crack down on human trade. And the chief, a purple-haired woman relaxing in a hot spring, orders the corpses to be hung in the square as a warning, before telling her subordinate to get lost and let her handle finding the culprit. Adding one last casual threat that if breakfast tomorrow is still disgusting, the cooks will not live to make another. She sinks into the water, surrounded by steam, a picture of deadly calm. The demon chief closes her eyes, her one pressing thought being a craving for high-quality sugar, while outside 2 of her guards gossip about security, dismissing the idea of a powerful intruder hiding their true strength. Because faking your power seal requires impossible control, right as Gelong watches them from the shadows. And they laugh off the idea of some beyond seal powerhouse, completely unaware of the green glow right beside them. Gelong's new plan is simple: pose as a weak first seal demon to bait bigger fish, a far more efficient way to level up. But then he stumbles upon a corpse, another genius youth mysteriously killed, and the locals are getting spooked. A murder he knows he did not commit, which means there is a pattern here he was not aware of. And he realizes with a grim certainty that he is not the only predator in this village. He walks on, his boots kicking up dust, senses on high alert, his glowing green eyes scanning the area for any sign of this rival killer, and he spots them, a lone hooded figure standing eerily still down the path, just waiting there amongst the hanging laundry like some kind of grim reaper on laundry day. And Gelong figures they are not there to learn new farming techniques from a slave, because the hooded figure suddenly blurs into motion, charging straight for him. The impact is instant and violent, a shockwave exploding against a nearby wall, as the attacker lands a punch infused with dark energy right into Gelong's guard. But Gelong holds his ground, his own clawed hand pressed firm against the blow, absorbing the force completely, his eyes narrowing as he realizes his opponent has some truly incredible defensive power, and the two combatants spring apart, putting distance between them in the dusty square. Before Gelong retaliates with a devastating sidekick that shatters a thick wooden beam into splinters. Meanwhile, in a desolate wasteland, some poor soul is watching massive structures get ripped apart as water cascades everywhere. And it turns out he is face to face with the very person causing all this chaos, a towering figure with dark, vicious claws, who just mocks him for even trying to stand after taking a direct hit. The attacker grabs his hand, smugly declaring that she clearly overestimated his strength. And in that same instant, her palm erupts with jagged, violent purple energy, unleashing a massive explosion that completely engulfs our hero in a storm of dark power. Through the blinding light, he grits his teeth, straining against the overwhelming force with pure determination, as the impact craters the very ground beneath their feet, leaving a web of glowing purple fissures spiderwebbing across the entire battlefield. Gelong bandages on his chest and a dark sigil glowing, cannot believe she just tanked that head-on by reinforcing her entire body, and the two stand off amidst the wreckage, her looking completely unfazed while he is still crackling with leftover energy. A tattered banner whips past, momentarily hiding the woman, but her glowing eyes never leave him, before the cloth settles silently onto the dusty, ruined earth. From above, the sheer scale of the destruction is obvious. Craters and debris litter the entire settlement. The purple-haired antagonist finally turns to leave, deciding it's pointless to give chase when he's that fast, but not before casually wondering if she should just behead him next time or maybe keep him as a pet. Back in the forest, Gelong knows he is outmatched for now, realizing it'll take months to forge the special sword he needs, which means he needs a new plan, a molt into a form strong enough to crack this impossibly tough opponent. And with that thought, his body begins to twist as a vortex of dust and energy swirls around him. The transformation starting as he raises a hand to his face, ready for the painful evolution. A sudden memory flashes through his mind, dark claws gripping a face and a voice screaming, "Sulla." The scene shifts to a smoky forge, where a young blonde girl named Sulla admits she was so excited to get the rare Anxi steel that she forgot to build a chimney. And as the forge overheats, she rushes to save the metal, all focus and determination. A pair of heavy tongs pulls the glowing orange steel from the fire. Sulla's face beaded with sweat as she begins to work the impossibly hot metal, shaping it with a beam of pure energy as steam billows around her. And she proudly presents the finished blade to Gelong, explaining she made it a hand and a half size since he is not at full power, declaring it her masterpiece, the first Anxi steel weapon of the new era. Gelong's green eyes glow intensely as Sulla asks him to bear witness to her creation. His hands closing around the hilt of the shimmering serpentine blade, he tells her she has done well and her face absolutely lights up with pride. But then he points out the obvious lack of a hilt or guard, to which she sheepishly admits she does not have the materials yet, so he just wraps the base in cloth, saying this is more than enough for now. When asked for a name, Sulla decides to call it Little Sulla, a callback to his old weapon, and he agrees. The blade immediately responds, glowing with a sinister green light as shadowy serpent tendrils writhe around it, confirming it's the perfect offering to trigger his serpent's molt. But he knows he has to wait until the sword is truly complete to unlock his most powerful form. Sulla, oblivious to his cosmic plans, just raises her hammer and promises to work hard to finish it. Before asking if he can now use his legendary Skyfall sword technique, a move he says is impossible without a high enough vantage point. The next morning, she's completely passed out from exhaustion. Back in the present, Gelong is lying down, smelling something delicious, which turns out to be an incredibly long platter of food that Sulla is staring at, and he explains a student's parent taught him the recipe back at the Royal Academy, before carrying the platter off, telling the others he needs to deliver wine to the chief. He waits on a bench in a grand hall, a plan clearly brewing in his mind. His face is grim, a stark contrast to the smirking, purple-haired woman he is about to face. Approaching her on the couch, he presents the platter and she smugly asks to see the goods, remarking how smart he is to serve himself up so willingly, a cruel smile spreading across her face as she repeats how clever he is. Her mood snaps in an instant, and she screams for the guards downstairs to bring the wine up now. That is his cue. He unleashes a lightning-fast sword strike, sending fruit flying everywhere, catching her completely off guard, blood dripping from her lip as she recognizes the Anxi steel sword, and Gelong, now cloaked in dark energy, promises the next strike will not be so lucky. She throws up a hand, activating her talent seal, the Ibai's armament, manifesting a massive golden shield called Dawn's Aegis to block him, and he notes her defensive ability, deciding to test its limits. While she looks thoroughly annoyed, stating this kind of surprise is not to her taste, He just retorts that maybe he did not add enough honey, his mistake for not asking her preference, his blade already screaming down toward her shield as he finishes his sentence. The collision is catastrophic, a blinding explosion of energy that blows the entire hall apart. Her shield morphs into a massive golden hammer to meet his strike, the impact shaking the very foundations of the room. But a cold smile spreads across her face as she channels more power, changing its form once again, this time into a deadly spear for a twilight assault, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. A massive golden drill tip drives straight for his face, his eyes blazing with fury, and the weapon connects, but he immediately counters with a lightning infusion attack, leaping into the air to bring down an electrified slash that shatters the ground beneath them. The sheer force of the blow sending shockwaves ripping through the chamber. She stands behind her shield, mocking his reckless attacks and predicting he will run out of power soon, which forces him to take inventory, enough juice for 4 more big hits and 1 heal, so he rethinks his strategy for a smarter approach. His new plan is a net of lightning, a glowing purple web cast from above to trap her. A petty trick she casually steps on, completely unaffected. Turns out she's coated her body in an insulating layer of power, a technique he invented to fight demons now stolen and used against him. The sheer audacity of this demon thief using his own moves to fight him is just staggering, but she just smirks, asking why he is getting so worked up. She lunges, her spinning golden drill aimed right at his chest, and the weapon strikes true, piercing straight through him with lethal intent, leaving him impaled and suspended in the air on the end of her spear. Looking down at him, she scoffs that getting distracted during an assassination is just laughable, but he just used that opening to activate his real trap, shadowy serpents erupting from his bloodline to attack her. The serpents coil around her neck and face, her shock absolute as she realizes this cheap trick is anything but. His sword begins to resonate, crackling with raw seal power. And she stares at it, trying to mock him even as a dark serpent construct coils around her, while he calmly declares that the warm-up is officially over. A quick flash of history shows the hero Ibai's fighting the great evil lava serpent to protect the world. A legend where the hero choked the beast to death but was burned to ashes in a noble sacrifice. Back in the fight, the woman lunges with golden energy, going for a high-speed strike. But her eyes widen in panic as she realizes she's made a fatal mistake, because he was waiting for the exact moment she switched from her spear back to her shield. He exploits the opening perfectly, landing a devastating blow that sends blood flying, his eyes glowing with a cold, purple intensity in the darkness. But she is not done yet. Bloodied and furious, she catches his jagged sword between her teeth, snarling that she has finally got him, and unleashes a brutal punch with a massive, armored gauntlet, the hand of final will, the mechanical fist glowing with golden light as it connects with devastating force. And he barely manages to block the hit, dark energy flaring as he absorbs the impact. The collision carves a massive crater in the floor, throwing them both apart, and with ruptured organs and shattered ribs, he knows he has to dodge the next one or he is finished. Her fist blurs forward with incredible speed, aiming to entangle him, but he catches her mechanical arm, locking it in place as she sneers at his attempt to use technique against brute force, to which he calmly replies that as an experienced fighter he is happy to take this to the ground, and the two are instantly locked in a desperate grapple, a frantic blur of breaks, locks, and counters across the floor. She pins him flat, a predatory glint in her eyes as she taunts him about his internal injuries, mentioning he is only the second person she has ever met who could take this kind of punishment, and with a grinding crunch she locks his leg down, adding a little extra pressure just for fun, before casually offering him a job mid-beatdown. He spits out a firm no, which she seems to take as a personal insult, and her fist comes down like a meteor, shattering the very ground beneath them, followed by another golden energy-infused punch aimed to vaporize him on the spot. The impact creates a shockwave that rips through the entire chamber, powerful enough to send cracks racing up a massive nearby tower, threatening to bring the whole thing down. But he manages to divert the force with his sword, plunging it deep into a giant skull monument instead, tearing a swirling vortex into the earth itself. She stands over the wreckage, annoyed that his special sword saved him from total annihilation, but figures there is no way he could have survived that blast with his existing wounds, which is exactly when he floats out of the dust, glowing with a green healing art. He lands with an earth-shattering stomp, perfectly fine and ready for round 2. High above the battlefield, the giant silent skull waits, until a pulsating sphere of violet energy begins to gather right above it, while down below our hero crackles with blinding white light, channeling his weapon's full power. And she realizes with dawning horror what he is about to do. He unleashes his ultimate technique, slamming a pillar of phantom lightning directly into the skull. The woman in gold braces for impact, screaming at the filthy demon as the attack descends, a swirling vortex of energy threatening to swallow everything whole, and the resulting explosion is catastrophic, shattering reality into floating blocks of darkness. Streaks of violet energy bombard the ancient stone tower, tearing it apart piece by piece, leaving the structure smoking and ruined under an ominous sky. And inside, amidst the dust and crackling lightning, a lone figure stands in the wreckage. It is him, wrapped in bandages, his eyes now glowing a piercing green as ghostly particles drift around him, a close-up revealing the full extent of his demonic transformation. The woman, now just a form wreathed in white smoke, admits that if she had not used her own move, his sword would have finished her. revealing he is the first person in 2 years to push her this far, just as she summons a massive ethereal banner behind her, a defensive seal of immense power, one that redirects and absorbs incoming attacks, a perfect counter to his raw power. He can only stare in shock, realizing he is facing the legendary Undying Battle banner. As she lunges forward, wreathed in a hot pink aura, her arm transformed into lethal claws, snarling that he can take his pride straight to hell. But she freezes mid-swing, her eyes wide with confusion as she stares at her target, whispering a single name, her attack fading as a look of profound regret crosses her face. Beneath the bandages on her neck, a tattoo of Roman numerals is just barely visible. And in a totally different part of the world, a group of travelers is on their way to meet an ally, a so-called demon-slaying maniac named Gelong, when one of them points out a bizarrely perfectly round mountain peak on the horizon. Suddenly that mountain starts to fall from the sky, a massive spherical entity making the ground tremble, and from the dust emerges a colossal monster with glowing red eyes looming over them all. A troll-round mountain, a beast of pure destruction. The creature clutches its head and lets out a world-shaking roar of pure agony, its crimson eyes burning with rage as rain begins to pour. One of the knights looks up, recognizing the attack forming in the heavens above, just as a blinding beam of white energy descends, piercing directly into the giant's head. The pillar of light skewers the monster from top to bottom, a brutal, instantaneous execution, but its massive fist still comes crashing down in its death throes. The giant collapsing backward as its body cracks apart, glowing like magma from within. A blindfolded woman in the group raises her hand, unleashing a burst of golden light, creating a brilliant barrier that shields them all from the devastating shockwave, while the troll's severed arm crashes to the ground nearby. In the sky, a dark sphere of energy hangs ominously, the last remnant of the battle, leaving nothing but the giant's ruined head lying in a field of debris. The party of four stands ready within the golden light, preparing for whatever comes next, staring at the blood-soaked remains of the colossal beast. And there he is, a figure kneeling in the carnage, covered in blood from head to toe, his one visible eye peering through the gore at the newcomers. One of the travelers steps forward, trying to break the ice by saying they are all comrades now. But the blood-soaked man, Gelong, immediately shuts him down, stating it is better to draw a clear line, creating a tense standoff between him and the armored knight of the group. Because according to Gelong, deep feelings are nothing but a burden or a hidden danger. He is all business, and his grim expression says he is not here to make friends. But the knight is not having it, telling Gelong he does not agree with that philosophy, to which Gelong coldly replies that his opinion is completely irrelevant. The two stand in a pool of the monster's blood, a clear divide between them already forming. And the knight eventually has to apologize to his party for Gelong's difficult personality, admitting to himself that he probably will not be having any kind of friendship with this guy. Meanwhile, back in the ruined tower, the purple-haired demon is staring in shock at the bandaged warrior Gelong, who just calmly confirms that yes, it is really him, and she immediately pulls him into a desperate, emotional hug, crying that he is alive. The fight is forgotten, replaced by a raw, overwhelming reunion between old comrades. And as she sobs into his shoulder, he asks why she is crying, saying she is not at all like she used to be, to which she whispers that she never thought she'd see a comrade again. Gelong looks up, his own face filled with sorrow as he starts to apologize for his failures in the past. But their moment is interrupted by two goblin-like creatures bursting in and yelling for their chief, only to find the two of them locked in an embrace in a single spotlight of wreckage. The woman tells them to get out, and they wisely retreat, whispering about the sheer intensity of the fight, noting that even with her insane defense, she is still in pain from his attacks. Gelong casts a healing spell, his hand glowing green as he mends her arm, and she asks if he's been feeling guilty about their past all this time, but he just tells her to stop, saying he always found her lectures annoying, which makes her cry out in pain from the healing spell, claiming she is just scared of pain and that is why she always wore such thick armor. They sit down to share some fruit, a moment of peace after the chaos, and he confirms that he and his sister Fea were reincarnated as demons about 2 years ago, thinking they were the only ones, before looking at her with a deeply suspicious expression, finally asking the big question, "So you have changed sex?" She just stares back at him, completely unfazed, and asks him the same question right back, her golden eyes fixed on his, holding a piece of fruit on her fork as if nothing is out of the ordinary, and then she drops the bombshell with a faint, knowing smile. "I was always a woman." Gelong's entire world shatters in an instant, his hand flying to his mouth in utter disbelief, and all he can manage to stammer out is a single breathless, "Huh." She looks at him, a bead of sweat on her cheek, and asks if he seriously thought she was a man for the 3 years they knew each other, sending him into a spiral of mortification as he remembers being called a terrible judge of character and thinking it was a joke. He holds his head in his hands as she confirms that yes, literally everyone else knew. And when he asks why she never said anything, she gives the most logical answer ever, "Why did not you ask?" Turns out he even thought Fea calling her Ga, which means big sister, was some kind of northern military title. Changing the subject to save his dignity, they check on a sleeping child, the granddaughter of a swordsmith. And as the child sleeps, the woman notices a set of 4 small wooden figurines on a nearby barrel. But as she counts them, her expression darkens, a light glowing from her chest as she realizes one is missing. She turns her head, glancing over at him as he stares into the dim light of the workshop, and picks up a jagged piece of wood, questioning his need for self-punishment. but he just says it is to remind himself to do better, a personal motivational tool. His green eyes glowing as he vows to eradicate evil and protect them all this time. The sorceress just cracks a dismissive smile, completely unimpressed with his solo hero act, pointing a finger right at him, basically asking if he really thinks he can do it alone, before her expression hardens, declaring that when it comes to kicking butt he can count her in. In that instant, they lock hands, sealing their new pact with a decisive snap. A powerful alliance formed right there among the wood shavings and barrels. Nearby, the small wooden figurines stand in a row, silent witnesses to their promise, each one a stark reminder of the people they are now sworn to protect. Later, on a cliff overlooking a desolate valley, she mentions his secret assassinations of demon geniuses, and he confirms it, a grim strategy to stop future threats and keep his own ambitious underlings in check. While she complains that their current demon king could not care less about governing, making life a nightmare, admitting that most demons are just slaves to their violent instincts. This gets him to confess that his demon nature has changed him too, making him a bit milder and tragically far less creative when it comes to destroying his enemies. At that exact moment, little Fair appears, asking who this new big sister is, and the sorceress instantly melts, playfully pinching the kid's cheeks. Hoisting her into the air as Gelong explains she is another reincarnated soul, currently dressed in rags. Taking charge, the sorceress tells them to pack their things for a move to her basement, and soon they are walking through a dark tunnel lit by glowing orbs, Gelong trailing behind with the luggage, where he discovers a massive board covered in intel, stunned by her work over the past 2 years. A closer look reveals a list of demon kings, several crossed out in red. Next to a note casually mentioning he dealt with one and simply forgot to tell her. Meanwhile, Fair is modeling a fancy new outfit, wondering if it is practical for a fight, prompting a chibi-style boast from the sorceress about her royal quality craftsmanship, and Gelong admits he honestly thought she just spent her days weaving grass skirts this whole time. Using shadowy appendages, she starts tossing accessories around to complete the look. But Gelong's focus is suddenly ripped away by another object in the room, a shimmering, spiraling blue horn that he recognizes instantly as the call of the Soul Sea. She says a merchant caravan gave it to her as a toll payment, thinking it was just a pretty shell, but he reveals it is an ancient artifact that lets one person enter another's soul. Essentially, a high-tech magical device for peeking at someone else's secrets. This gives him a wild idea. They can use it to look back at the moment of their deaths, because he has always had a feeling something was very wrong with that final battle, and he asks her to enter his soul to see what really caused their reincarnation. She agrees without a second thought, her face a mask of determination, ready to dive into his memories and uncover the truth, until he casually mentions they need to attach the other half first, because of course they do. The sorceress's confident look evaporates as she admits the other half is gone, plundered by a local demon bandit gang that has been terrorizing the area for months, and she cannot get it back because her tracking skills are, to put it mildly, non-existent, a fact Gelong is more than happy to roast her for, mocking her failed stealth lessons. He points out that all her previous attempts to tail him were so clumsy a blind man could have spotted her, which reduces her to tears, promising to practice, but he insists the practice starts now. Cut to the bandit camp, a scruffy little settlement nestled against a cliff, where a couple of goons complain about the lack of good raiding opportunities lately, as their boss sits on a makeshift throne preaching about the virtues of slow growth, and their grand plan to one day take on some damned evil dragon. 2 more grunts haul in a couple of heavy crates, supposedly tribute from a serpent's nest. And they dump the cargo carelessly at the edge of the camp, which turns out to be a huge mistake since our heroes are hiding inside. Within the crate, they confirm their plan: no direct attacks, too many bandits, because if anyone escapes with the artifact piece, this whole mission is a failure, so they will lay low and wait for a chance to spot where the loot is stashed. Outside, a particularly large demon decides their crate is the perfect place to sit down, and proceeds to loudly announce his genius idea to trick the dragon into fighting the humans. But in a perfect moment of karmic justice, the crate shatters right under him. He stumbles to his feet, furious at the shoddy goods, only to realize the crate is completely empty. From the shadows, the sorceress unleashes her true power, an ancient serpent's bloodline, her eyes and a massive snake head peering from behind cover, ready to strike. While across the camp, the bandit leader stands by his haul, totally clueless, telling his captive he is off to a black market to trade for better weapons. But she coolly informs him that market was recently wiped out by a tough character, right before a shadowy figure with glowing green eyes materializes behind them. Gelong's voice cuts through the air, giving the order to crush everyone else, and the sorceress explodes into action, sending the biggest bandit flying with one punch. All while screaming about how they stole her good food and forced her to eat wild herbs. A fist glowing with dark energy drives her point home with extreme prejudice, leaving the entire gang of bandits broken and scattered across the clearing. The one-eyed leader can only stare in horror, accusing her of leading the bone crushers to them, collapsing to the ground as his short-lived empire crumbles around him. Before he tries a last-ditch effort, begging for his life by pretending to be her abused captive, his plea is answered with a single, brutal, bisecting strike, as she stands over him with the bag of loot, declaring she was tired of him anyway. Gelong then appears in a flash of purple energy, his eyes locked on the prize, but the sorceress decides this is the perfect time to flirt, offering him a new position as her boy toy. an offer he completely ignores as he zips past in a blur, snatching the bag without breaking stride, leaving the remaining bandits stunned that their boss was taken out by a kid in an instant. Back at their base, Gelong has shifted into teacher mode, critiquing her fighting style, explaining that her talent seal is perfectly suited for integrating offense and defense, and he is about to give her a crash course in some advanced academic-style techniques. Infusing his own seal power directly into her body to act as a guide, he tells her not to resist, just to feel the circulation and learn a new way for her power to operate, a one-time demonstration where it is all on her to grasp the lesson, and she does, unleashing a brilliant new technique that fills the room with light, earning a rare nod of approval from her mentor, who admits learning is a pretty good feeling. Before grabbing the completed artifact, calling her conservative, and announcing it is time to go. In a quiet corner, little Fea naps at a table full of food, a tiny frog sleeping soundly on her head. Gelong holds the fragile conch, warning that it is a one-use item, so she has only one chance, and her mission is to see clearly what really happened when he and the Demon Emperor died. She looks worried, but he just tells her to get ready as he presses the artifact to his chest. And an intense surge of energy erupts, engulfing him in a blinding light, leaving him standing alone in a swirling ethereal fog once it fades. His voice echoes out with one final cryptic warning: do not look at things you are not supposed to see. And from inside his soul she scoffs, wondering what could possibly be so bad, right before she lays eyes on a massive, unsettling statue rising from a dark sea, a thick rope tied tightly around its stone neck in a horrifying noose. And she immediately recognizes the god of mercy, sarcastically noting that Gelong is just as merciful himself. Suddenly, he is standing right there beside her in his own soul, and she's completely baffled he can even do that. But before she can get an answer, the entire psychic landscape fractures into a storm of red and white light, and his spectral form just points forward with a single command, sending her hurtling through the void toward a massive, blood-red moon radiating pure power. She crashes right into a memory, a violent flash of a figure in stained armor getting absolutely shredded by a beam of energy, and she realizes she's witnessing the immediate aftermath of her own death through Gelong's eyes. Shards of the sword Sulla float in a void of shadows, surrounded by glowing red eyes, while a warrior, completely overwhelmed by dark tendrils, admits he has been cornered, forcing him to use a pathetic backup plan, relying on someone else's authority just to survive. A massive fist slams down, unleashing a forbidden technique, cruel samsara body snatching, a desperate last-ditch effort to reincarnate his soul into a talented member of the demon race. But the ritual shatters at the last second, failing to fully form and throwing everything into chaos. The resulting psychic storm rips through the memory, and Fea understands it was all her fault, just as she sees Sovka's pale body lying lifeless in a pool of blood. The failed ritual explodes, its consequences now a total mystery, but a sinister, disembodied grin promises that something survived, ready to walk the world again, and the horrible truth hits her like a truck: the Demon Emperor has also reincarnated. The memory shatters like glass, sending her tumbling out of the vision, only to land in a nightmarish chamber filled with figures hanging from ropes, a literal hell of bones and blood, making her wonder if she is still trapped in his soul. A distorted voice echoes out, pretending to be Gelong and offering her an escape route, luring her across a desolate landscape littered with skeletons, but the real Gelong's voice screams into her mind, warning her not to look. Too late, she turns to face a towering abyssal shadow beast, a true nightmare given form, its colossal maw opening wide, ready to swallow her whole. But a blinding flash of light erupts from nowhere, blasting the darkness back. It is the real Gelong, radiating pure energy and yelling at her to snap out of it, as he yanks her soul out of the abyss with a stream of light, sending her crashing back to reality. Dazed and desperate for answers about what that thing was, he brushes it off, promising to explain later, demanding to know what she found instead. So she lays it all out: the Demon Emperor's authority is to assimilate whoever kills him. And as she speaks, dark energy begins to crawl up Gelong's body, his rage barely contained. She warns him they have to find the reincarnated emperor before he becomes a world-ending disaster all over again, a being whose entire history is a terrifying cycle of seizing and granting power. But just as the gravity of the situation sinks in, she casually mentions there is one more thing. His eyes glow with intensity as he cuts straight to the point, asking where Sovka is. And suddenly Fea gets incredibly awkward, claiming she did not notice in all the chaos, immediately trying to change the subject by offering to make dinner for little Sulla. A brilliant distraction right up until Gelong appears behind her, his voice cold as ice, demanding she stop dodging and just tell him the truth. Fea looks down, her expression full of sorrow, clearly struggling to find the words, admitting she does not know how to break the news to him. Her mind flashing back to a happier time, watching two friends fish in a forest, a quiet moment by a campfire she did not want to interrupt, even when her armored companion tried to barge in on them, who then hilariously admitted that his complete inability to read the room is exactly why his ex-wife left him. Back in the present, her companion notices the counter on Gelong's eye is gone, and Gelong explains that Mark only appears when he kills someone he did not want to. A stain that will not vanish until he feels genuine happiness again, pointing out that his friend must have found that feeling after reuniting with his family, that Fea, despite her tough exterior, is deeply considerate, and that little Fea's presence makes every day brighter. But his companion quietly adds one more source of happiness to the list: making sure Gelong understands that he is a part of it too. With the mood softened, Fea finally reveals the truth. Sovka's fate was different from theirs, and Gelong just accepts it with a chilling calmness, calling it another blood debt to be paid, calmly marking a symbol on a diagram with his clawed hand, before crushing the paper, promising it will all be repaid in blood. Meanwhile, at Hardstone Village, a scene of absolute carnage is unfolding, where a centaur-like demon brags about his unique weight training routine using live humans. A captured man tries to comfort his terrified daughter, promising her mother will save them. As the horned beast laughs, deciding to speed up his workout, the man is dragged violently by the rope, desperately shielding the little girl, but then her eyes glow a sinister red and she coldly observes the suffering of humanity, filling her own father's eyes with pure, unadulterated terror, while the sprinting demon suddenly feels the rope go taut. Looking back in confusion, wondering what could possibly stop him, only to see the tiny girl holding the line perfectly still amidst the inferno. All the other demons freeze, their bloodlust turning to shock, as the girl speaks to her father's mangled body, blaming herself for awakening too late to prevent his pain, deciding the only way to express her sincerest apologies is to grant him death personally, revealing her true identity, Demon Emperor Sumurialus, reborn in a new vessel. She stands over her father's headless corpse, a tiny god in a field of gore, as the remaining demons surround her ready to attack, but she just looks at them with disappointment, asking why her own creations have become so depraved, explaining she wanted them to exterminate humanity, not to sadistically torture them, lamenting that they take pleasure in cruelty, a mistake piled on top of another mistake. One demon screams at her to die right as she unleashes her power. A wave of all-punishing extinction that vaporizes the entire army into dust, leaving her alone on a barren battlefield, reflecting on the outcome of a war from 5 years ago. In a flash, she's speaking to Gelong in a vision, saying he is unforgettable, remembering the moment she assimilated him and saw the darkness at the bottom of his heart, a vision that revealed his true self to her, and she laments that if he'd only seen her heart too, they could have been friends. The vision shifts to a female warrior in silver armor, arriving too late to save a village from demons. Her face a mask of devastation as she takes in the horrific scene, finding a single survivor, the small, pale-haired girl with glowing red eyes, and the warrior approaches her gently, calling her child, pulling the girl into a hug and sobbing that she is sorry, wishing her mom had been faster, weeping apologies over and over, completely unaware of the truth. While the demon emperor just stares blankly, coldly observing yet another suffering human. Suddenly, the warrior's eyes widen in absolute terror, as her own sword pierces straight through the child she is holding, a tragic accident in the chaos that leaves her recoiling in horror, watching the girl's lifeless body fall to the ground. But the girl's eyes snap open, glowing with a sinister dual-colored light, her body beginning to reform as she declares her great cause cannot be delayed any longer. Back in the present, Fea strategizes, realizing they have no way to track the reincarnated emperor. But Gelong has an idea, a potential clue from Fenling, the current silent death demon king, revealing they have known her for a while, and Fea's truth-detecting ability confirms she is righteous, making her their only lead. But a dark presence looms over Gelong's shoulder, a shadow of his past, questioning this alliance with any demon, reminding him of their true goal, the complete and utter extermination of the entire demon race. Until a clawed hand snaps him out of his dark thoughts, asking him why he is spacing out. With his bandaged arms and combat gear, Gelong just brushes it off, claiming he was just a little distracted. And under the star-filled sky, he tells Fea and the kid this flat terrain is the perfect spot for some preventive work, his gloved hand dripping with blood as he orders them to summon a vampire knight to leak intel to the humans. Which sends Fea into a panic. A vampire is a monster of legend, a creature so terrifying that villains kill themselves rather than face him. Gelong just stands there, his blood staining the ground, the weight of his decision made. In the center of a massive, glowing red magic circle, he begins the summoning ritual. But 2 hours later, he's just sighing in the woods, admitting it has been a while and the guy's probably just slow to answer. Fea, completely drained, decides to take a nap, telling them to wake her when the vampire finally shows up, leaving the intricate red circle burning brightly on the forest floor, a beacon for what is to come. The kid, meanwhile, is still skeptical, wondering if this whole bat-winged vampire thing is just a cheap horror story, his eyes darting around as shadowy bats start fluttering through the trees, completely freaking him out. But then he sees it as just one bat flying by and breathes a sigh of relief, thinking he was just scaring himself. Right before a massive, blood-stained blade tipped with glowing red eyes appears directly over his head. The kid lets out a blood-curdling scream, his face a mask of pure terror, collapsing to the ground and crying for his uncle to save him as the monster's limb presses down, revealing a towering blade-limbed monstrosity dripping with fresh blood, a true nightmare brought to life, and Gelong just looks up at the beast and scolds it. "I did not call you here to scare people for fun." The shadowy knight towers over a fallen warrior, demanding he gets serious, his voice echoing from behind a masked helmet as he states the person who could summon him is long dead. And kneeling with a glowing red weapon, he asks Gelong how he learned the technique. While the little girl whispers that this vampire knight does not exactly look friendly, in fact, he looks pretty ticked off. The knight V. Helen looms over them, hoping Gelong will confess willingly, otherwise he will have to invite him to talk, But Gelong is completely unfazed, even complimenting his use of rhetorical devices like a smug linguistics teacher. Before his eyes glow green, and he coldly adds that everything else about the night is a massive disappointment. That familiar tone sends a jolt through V. Helen, who stares in shock and stammers. You, a massive shadow of Gelong towers over the night as he declares. In my class you still fail, V. Helen. The knight trembles, his hands reaching for his mask as the horrifying truth dawns on him. And as he lifts it, he whispers the name of the man he once feared most, Professor Gelong. The story then flashes back to a grand stone castle under a bright, clear sky. Inside, a bruised, white-haired captive is pinned to the ground by a young Mulder Lawrence, begging him not to burn his hand with a red-hot iron. But Mulder just grins cruelly, enjoying the power as he asks his victim for a reason why. And the kid sobs that his mother will see the burn and worry about him, making Mulder muse on how normal families actually care for their children, unlike his own twisted kin. And then his face twists into pure sadistic rage as he slams the iron down anyway, screaming that he does not care. He raises the branding iron again, eyes wild with malice, ready to burn the other hand, the searing light flashing as he brings it down with a sickening thud. But a tall man in a white coat suddenly appears, catching the red-hot metal in his bare hand. It is Gelong, and with a death glare he warns Mulder that next time his parents can come shovel him home in a bucket. Mulder, ever the entitled brat, points a finger and starts ranting about how a mere honorary professor has no right to talk to him. So Gelong responds by blasting him and his two cronies straight through a stone wall and out the window. Standing there completely composed as the white-haired student he just saved summons a faint green energy in his palm. The student rushes forward, yelling for the professor to wait, but Gelong just keeps walking away from the gathered crowd, completely ignoring their pleas, until he finally pauses at a doorway, his back turned to them all. And with a final glance at the grateful student, he simply says, "Thank you." Later, two students are peering into a massive lecture hall, stunned that it is packed with over 1,000 people, and one explains that the lecturer is a legendary demon-slaying maniac who rarely has time to teach. So of course every wannabe hero in the kingdom is breaking down the doors to hear him speak. The students then spot a bunch of royalty in the crowd, pointing them out excitedly. Mentioning the 6th, 7th, and 9th prince and princess, and wondering where the 8th is, turns out Gelong threw him out for being an arrogant jerk. Meanwhile, the white-haired student wanders through the woods, wondering how he could possibly repay the professor. When suddenly glowing green vines erupt from the ground and wrap tightly around his body, he is hoisted upside down, a captive of Mulder's crew, who offer him a chance to live if he lures Gelong into their trap. But the kid just curses them out, refusing to betray his savior, prompting Mulder to grin, promising to enjoy the long, slow process of crushing every bone in his body. The student panics, knowing he cannot let them get their hands on the professor, and in his desperation he realizes there is only one way out. He has to use his talent seal. Unfortunately, he is a total idiot who is always too scared to practice, so he has no idea how to use it. And as the vines tighten, his breath catches, realizing he is about to die right here. Mulder just smirks down at him, condescendingly calling him a tough guy for holding out this long. But the kid ignores the taunt, screaming a warning that the Lawrence family is trying to harm the professor. A calm voice cuts through the chaos as Gelong gestures to the sky, casually remarking, "They will be coming down soon." And sure enough, Mulder and his two goons are seen plummeting from a great height, screaming all the way down, until they slam into the ground with a massive, gory impact that paints the forest floor red. Gelong stands over the grisly scene, dryly noting their parents will need a shovel to collect the pieces. He then tells the rescued student to come to class, explaining his scary talent has great potential to become the enemy's nightmare. And as Gelong walks away, the kid calls out, admitting he has no idea how to thank him, to which Gelong replies that is his problem, not his. He is too busy thinking about what to have for dinner, maybe a nice fruit pie. Back in the present, V. Helen pledges to immediately warn the human nations about the Demon Emperor. And Fea asks who they are talking about. The answer is humanity's two greatest protectors, Emperor Hoya, the restorer of humanity, and Rainstorm Yuha, the ultimate warrior. The problem is Yuha retired years ago and is notoriously hard to reach, but he is also the only person who ever beat Gelong in a straight fight. So there is no time to waste, and V. Helen is urged to leave immediately before the Demon Emperor gets another chance. And cloaked in red energy, V. Helen swears he will not fail this crucial mission. With that, he launches into the sky, a crimson blur rocketing toward human territory. Fea mockingly calls V. Helen a mosquito, relieved that with their backyard fire put out, they can finally focus on tracking the Emperor's reincarnation. The next day, as Gelong plans their expedition, he casually asks his companion to check for any high-quality pottery jars, leaving her totally confused. He then explains his master plan. Since the Demon Emperor cannot be killed, he will just chop off his limbs, gouge out his eyes, and pull out his tongue. Then stuff him in a jar and keep him barely alive for eternity, a task the Sect of Mercy will inherit for generations, making Fea thankful he is on their side. Elsewhere, a horned demon commander named Shaxing boasts about a recent challenger who only managed a draw with their chief, which gets a nearby goblin thinking he could do better, right before he sees a menacing figure approaching and panics. The entire group of demons freezes, their faces filled with fear as a lone warrior walks toward them, but Shaxing scoffs, clutching his weapon and declaring he is not someone to be trifled with. An opinion that lasts about 2 seconds, until a giant, dark claw looms over his face and he realizes begging for mercy is his only option. But it is far too late, as the warrior's hand strikes with blinding speed and overwhelming power. In the aftermath, the warrior stands perfectly calm beside his horses, while behind him Shaxing is left a hollow, defeated shell of a demon. The crowd parts as an announcement rings out, Lord Desert Tooth has arrived, and a tall, pale demon with a high collar struts through, announcing the chief will be away for a while. Then bites into an apple with a sinister grin, ordering everyone to prepare for a surprise send-off ceremony. The warrior Gelong in disguise watches from the shadows, realizing this sycophantic moron could expose their movements to other demon kings. Shaxing's comrades mock him for being a coward, but he gloomily points out that with the chief's backing, even this idiot has power over them. And right on cue, Desert Tooth swoops in, demoting Shaxing to a messenger and forbidding him from ever touching a weapon again. Gelong reconsiders, realizing this pest is actually a perfect tool. Letting an incompetent fool hold power is a low-cost way to cripple the demons from within. Still, he decides to test the waters, approaching Desert Tooth and pointing out that such a big fanfare goes against the chief's policy of saving resources. Which might just make her unhappy, a suggestion that infuriates Desert Tooth so much he spits out his apple and demands to know who this upstart is, towering over Gelong and screaming that he failed to kneel and bow upon his arrival. But because he is kind and benevolent, he will offer one chance for forgiveness, kowtow, and all will be forgotten. A chance he sweetens by mocking Gelong, saying the ground might be too hard for his delicate little head. So he has a lackey start digging a custom-made groveling hole just for him. With the stage perfectly set, Desert Tooth leans in, fangs out, and demands he kowtow now, while the local demon goons gather around, absolutely thrilled to watch the show. But Gelong stays silent, so Desert Tooth whispers a little threat about snitching to the chief, warning him that her roar alone could turn him to dust, and not even the great Lord Desert Tooth could save him then. Sneering that he is too scared to even speak, a real tough guy act for someone who brought backup. And finally, losing patience, he grabs Gelong by the neck to force his head into the dirt. Except a fist flies out of nowhere, connecting with Desert Tooth's face with a sickening crack, sending him sailing backwards headfirst right into the very hole he just had dug for Gelong. He pulls himself out, sputtering dirt and fury, only to see who just arrived. It is the chief herself, standing over him with a look that could curdle milk, asking exactly what he thinks he is doing. So Desert Tooth immediately starts whining, pointing at Gelong and claiming he was defying orders, but the chief just points a finger and tells him he is absolutely done, followed by a massive spiked pillar slamming down and crushing his leg as she screams at him to kneel. He collapses, clutching his ruined limb and whimpering about why she'd do this, and she looms over him, promising that one more why will get him a custom-fit coffin. Then orders him to kneel every single time he sees this traveler from now on, a command Gelong tries to soften, saying it is a bit much. Which is when the other demons put 2 and 2 together, this human must be a high-ranking emissary for the cruel demon king. A broken Desert Tooth can only crawl away, realizing he just tried to bully one of the most connected people on the continent. So now Gelong's path is clear: manage this territory, atone for his past crimes, and earn his way back. His companion is optimistic, believing the silent death demon king will help them since she despises the demon emperor. And with renewed purpose, they ride hard, pushing their horses to the limit. Their destination set, the court of Fenling, one of the 5 most powerful demons alive. Meanwhile, in the capital of the Eternal Royal Court, a different kind of power is consolidating, where the demon emperor Zhu preens about his successful reforms from his Gothic tower, claiming his race has finally developed emotions, the cornerstone of a true civilization. So now it is time for the next step: faith, a system where everyone worships him as a living god. And the campaigning demon king Agricola is all for it, noting that dead heroes are often more useful than living ones. While the nihilistic demon king Udred agrees, caring only that it does not interfere with weapon production, and Manatun just scoffs, annoyed that Zhu already got his son's approval without even asking him. But Fenling, the silent death demon king, is having none of it, questioning why she was even invited to this self-congratulatory nonsense. Though Zhu tries to play it cool, telling her he understands her ties to the old ways, insisting that one day she will see his grand vision is not just about wiping out humanity, it is about reforming the entire world under his divine rule. Fenling does not even bother arguing, she just stands up and excuses herself, walking out of the meeting without a second glance, leaving Zhu to continue his power grab with his loyal cronies. Far away, hooves thunder across the dusty plains. As Gelong and his companions venture into the cruel royal court's infamous no-man's land, a desolate, dangerous territory they have to cross to reach their goal. At that exact moment, Vampire Knight Helen is flying at top speed, having traveled for days without rest, finally reaching the Ainea kingdom with critical intelligence about the demon emperor's reincarnation, where he is greeted by an official who tells him not to worry about etiquette as the emperor is currently having dinner. And Helen reflects on the man he is about to meet, Emperor Hoya, the iron-fisted monarch who clawed his way to the throne through blood, But the man at the head of the table seems surprisingly relaxed, asking if he is the vampire knight his son spoke so highly of, casually mentioning he regrets missing V. Helen's knighting ceremony, then gestures to an empty seat, inviting him to sit down and eat. Complimenting V. Helen's sincerity, before jokingly telling his chancellor to write that down in the good deeds book for once. Which it turns out is a real thing, a white king's book for achievements and a black king's book for failures, and V. Helen cannot help but think this cheerful, down-to-earth emperor is nothing like the tyrant from the stories. As Hoya serves him a bowl of soup, V. Helen gets straight to business, ready to report on the demon emperor, and Hoya just nods, telling him to talk while they eat. So V. Helen explains the critical flaw in their strategy. He and the hero Yuha cannot kill anyone, lest they accidentally kill the emperor's vessel and get assimilated. To which Hoya calmly replies that Yuha is already an isolated cultivation on a remote island, a perfect cover, promising to send a secret agent to deliver the intel immediately. Right on cue, a guard announces an agent has returned, and though Hoya says V. Helen can stay, he politely excuses himself. But the emperor insists on showing him to the guest room personally, grumbling it is too much trouble to wake a servant. And as a hulking figure enters the hall, V. Helen asks if this is the trusted agent getting the job, but Hoya says no, a human is better for that mission. Revealing the agent to be Leimerstorff, a massive, demonic-looking spy who kneels and reports on his successful mission, leaving V. Helen completely stunned, blurting out what in the world a vampire knight is doing here. Hoya just smiles, deciding it is time for a formal introduction between his two very different subordinates, presenting V. Helen, vassal of the 8th Prince, and Leimerstorff, his personal royal spy. And V. Helen is already running the calculations. A demon serving the human emperor is a wild card he never saw coming. After Hoya leaves, Leimerstorff offers to show V. Helen to his room, but the tension is thick, with V. Helen immediately questioning his loyalty and Leimerstorff correcting him. It's not allegiance, it is employment, plain and simple. Explaining that in this chaotic world, a weakling like him just wants to find a good backer and make some money, holding up 2 identical gold bars and asking if V. Helen can tell which one is human and which is demon. A question V. Helen dismisses, stating that the war is none of his damn business anyway. Which is exactly Leimerstorff's point. He just wants to save up, get out, and live a quiet life somewhere far away. And V. Helen can only marvel at the irony that the demon's evolution has produced not just killers but a true self-serving villain. Leimerstorff laughs it off, saying at least he is not a hypocrite who pretends to be righteous while lining his own pockets, which brings him to the topic of V. Helen's famous teacher, Gelong, the ultimate selfless hero. But then he poses a chilling question: was Gelong truly selfless, or did his desires just happen to align with the greater good? His eye glows with manipulative intent as he asks what dark secrets the hero might have been hiding, summoning a storm of magical red blades that surround V. Helen in an instant. V. Helen's eyes flare with power as he warns the demon to choose his next words very, very carefully, but Leimerstorff just calls it a hypothesis, claiming he respected Gelong for protecting him from bullies back in the day, so V. Helen tells him to spit it out. And Leimerstorff wonders aloud what would happen if Gelong were still alive and forced to choose between his duty and his own selfish desires. A question that hangs in the air as we cut to Gelong himself, checking a map in the desolate no-man's land, blissfully unaware of the debate. His companion, a sharp-eared woman, turns her attention to the young boy Sulla, asking about his talent seal. And Sulla smiles, saying all he knows is that his smithing is unnaturally fast, like someone is helping him. So she decides it is time for some practical lessons, promising that a life-or-death situation is a great way to force out hidden potential. Starting with the basics, how seal power is generated by the heart and flows through the body, breaking down the 4 core applications: mobilization, amplification, release, and shaping, quickly demonstrating how they can be used to devastating effect in a fight, explaining that mobilization can enhance senses like granting thermal vision, while amplification raises defense by hardening the entire body, and shaping creates a precise energy shield. And release allows one to project those shaped forms like an energy snake as an attack. Then she tells Sulla to try the most basic step: mobilize the power into his hand, gently reminding him he does not need to shout it. And just like that, his hand starts to glow. He is a natural, and she tells him to try swinging his hammer, which feels impossibly light now, much to his delight. She explains he can imbue the hammer itself, but the effect on external objects decays quickly. With a few exceptions, like weapons made of anxi steel. But for now they are focusing on defense, telling him to concentrate all his power into one hand to make it rock solid, preparing to strike him with her blade to test it, and Sulla nervously agrees, trusting her control, right up until she deadpans that if she messes up and breaks his hand, she will just heal it for him afterwards. She brings the blade down with incredible speed, aimed right for his glowing palm. But Sulla stands his ground, and with a massive shockwave he blocks the strike perfectly. Energy crackles at the point of impact as he holds firm, his raw talent shining through. The power manifests as tiny glowing people standing on her knuckles, and the blonde girl beams, showing them off to Sulla like a new toy, who explains they are now mobilized and need their next command, though he immediately crosses amplification off the list unless she is a big fan of sudden cardiac arrest. So she goes with release instead, sending the little light sprites floating off her hand, and they drift over to Ifrit, settling on her armored shoulder like curious fireflies, who then tells the girl to use shaping to give the raw energy a physical form, and with a burst of imagination they become a tiny squad of archers holding glowing bows. Ifrit smiles, impressed, telling her to see if they have any automatic functions before basically saying, "The tutorial is over, kid." And for a moment they just watch the miniature glowing army, a masterpiece of raw talent. Turns out, with her forging skills, she was on track to awaken a rare acquired seal anyway, which very few people ever achieve. But their training session is cut short when the tiny archers suddenly sound the alarm. They spotted startled birds in the distance, and Sulla instantly goes on high alert, ordering the fire put out. Because way out in a rocky canyon, 3 figures are kicking up dust. And one of them, a knight captain named Lalo, is busy chewing out his subordinate for using his title in public, while they drag an unconscious princess on a stretcher, totally defenseless against any local demons. Which is exactly what Ifrit points out from their hiding spot, wondering what rich kid was dumb enough to wander out here. But Sulla recognizes her immediately. It is Yvette, the 9th princess of Ainea and the most ambitious one of the bunch. Leaving him to wonder what she is doing in this wasteland, and how she got so seriously injured. Meanwhile, a black snake with their group reveals itself to be the brains of the operation, calling the others useless trash for botching the mission. One of the knights is just wallowing in regret, thinking about how he only joined up to get close to the princess, and now he is stuck in a desert, dying of thirst, wondering where it all went wrong. While the snake mentally scoffs at him for losing Gelong's severed arm, and back on the ridge, Sulla watches the whole pathetic display unfold. Telling Ifrit he wants to use that very arm to evolve a new form, a dark power he desperately needs right now. Down below, the scout is apologizing for his bad intel, while Captain Lilo just internally calls both his men trash, and his stuttering friend tries to comfort him, saying at least they know who has the arm now, which was apparently exclusive intel he had to buy off the black market. Right before Lilo snatches the stretcher ropes out of his hands without a word. The others just watch, confused, as their captain starts marching off alone, who then declares that an Ainea knight never gives up halfway, announcing there is a water source ahead because he said so, that is why. But his moment of heroic delusion is interrupted by the princess coughing up a spray of blood, sending her retainers into a full-blown panic. She is clearly in bad shape, bleeding and unconscious on the stretcher, so Lilo orders the stuttering healer to cast a spell now. But the poor girl is completely drained of power from their last fight, crying as she admits she cannot do anything. And just as the scout draws his crossbow, thinking they are being watched, a voice calls out to them. It is Sulla and Ifrit, emerging from the heat haze like a mirage. The scout immediately lets an arrow fly, screaming that they are demons, but Sulla just casually deflects it, explaining they are part of the main peace faction and not looking for a fight. Offering a simple deal instead: information on Gelong's severed arm in exchange for healing their princess. And to prove his point, his hand transforms into a dark claw crackling with potent green energy, leaving Lilo to weigh his dwindling options, before finally caving, telling Sulla to just cure her already. Sulla gets to work, noting to himself that whatever hurt a princess this badly must be a real monster, and Yvette's body reacts violently to the surge of power, coughing up more blood. Which makes Lilo completely lose his cool, grabbing Sulla and demanding to know what he is doing. Sulla, completely unfazed, just stares him down, and shoves the captain back, telling him to relax since he is injured too. Right as Princess Yvette finally regains consciousness, looking dazed but alive. The little healer girl is just stunned, realizing this demon's healing magic is on par with the Demon King's, and the scout yells at Lilo to apologize for being such a hothead. Before Yvette cuts in, thanking Sulla for his help and acknowledging he is not a mindless beast, but Sulla cuts right to the chase, demanding his payment. And the moment she hears he wants info on the severed arm, her expression hardens, because that is the one thing she absolutely cannot give him. So she orders Lilo to stay silent, who can only apologize to Sulla, saying it is a state secret. Sulla, however, is not taking no for an answer, revealing that during the treatment he slipped a little something extra into her system, a fast-acting poison, and now they have a choice: talk or watch her die. But Yvette tries to call his bluff, telling Lilo not to fall for it, as Sulla taunts him, pointing out how bad it would look for a princess to die on his watch, and she doubles down, kneeling with her sword, betting he is the one who is bluffing, thinking she just needs to stall a few minutes to purge the poison herself. So Sulla and Ifrit turn to leave, acting like they are calling her bluff right back. The pressure is too much for Lilo, who finally breaks, shouting that the arm is with the great warlord Jer. He explains Jer was a confidant of the old cruel Demon King, now a wandering bandit, and their top secret intel revealed he was holding the arm, which the princess wanted to retrieve for a morale boost. But the warlord had already fused the arm to his own body, catching them completely off guard and leaving the princess gravely injured. So Sulla gets the location, the ruins of Mud Cow Town to the west, which is conveniently on their way, though they know a direct fight is suicide, so Lilo begs them to cure the poison now that he has talked, and with a firm grip on Yvette's arm, Sulla and Ifrit vanish in a flash of dark energy, leaving Lilo screaming at the empty desert about their cowardice, only for Yvette to stand up perfectly fine, telling him to put his sword away. Because the poison was a complete bluff all along, a fact that makes Lilo fall to his knees in apology, while his 2 subordinates panic about him getting court-martialed for disobeying a direct order from his princess. But Yvette just offers him a hand, telling him to stand up. She takes the blame herself, saying she did not explain the situation clearly enough, and tells him not to worry about Sulla since Jer will make short work of them anyway. Right before the scout screams a warning, enemies approaching, a bizarre spectral figure zips through the air towards them, and Yvette immediately barks orders, forming a defensive wedge as a massive dust cloud rolls in, from which a voice booms, confirming they are the ones with a bounty on their heads from Jer. And out of the storm rides the Skin Hunter Brotherhood, a gang of demons who are very, very literal about their name, forcing Yvette to order her team to hold their ground because the enemy is too fast to fight scattered, and the bandit leaders just smirk, confident their special talent seal will wear them down easily, as the lead psycho floats forward demanding they answer a question, a completely insane riddle about a talking rooster of all things. They have 3 seconds to answer, and when they fail, glowing parasite frogs materialize on their necks. A rule-based talent seal that will slowly drain their life force until they die, a truly horrifying way to go. And when the scout tries to shoot the caster, Yvette stops him, knowing he is too fast to hit from this range, which the bandit brothers confirm with a mocking laugh, zipping around untouchably. So the leader gives the signal, ordering all forces to attack while dreaming of his own future glory, and a horrifying horde of grotesque demons charges forward to overwhelm them. The team is frozen in terror, the glowing parasites pulsing on their necks as the enemy closes in for the kill. But in a flash of dark energy, Sulla appears, shielding the healer and calmly reminding her he said not to rush, and with a single brutal slash of purple light, the entire charging army is instantly eviscerated. The battlefield is nothing but a cloud of dust and purple mist, with Sulla standing at the epicenter of the carnage, leaving the healer staring in disbelief, barely able to process what just happened. When a familiar voice cuts through the silence, casually taking credit for wiping out the stragglers, it is the elf and his partner back with a proposition: team up to take down some guy named Jer, sees a legendary arm, and of course they get to keep the arm, but their sales pitch is cut short by a massive explosion of purple energy that rips through the landscape. Sulla is surging with power, his aura intensifying as he breaks through to the 3rd seal. And even he seems surprised, realizing this new form still has room to grow stronger. In the middle of a sandstorm, a new enemy shouts for his partner to ask a question while he holds Sulla off, and a multi-faced skeleton pops up, spewing green flames and the single dumbest riddle in history. So Sulla does not even bother to listen, he just starts counting down from 3, giving the most logical answer to the world's worst brain teaser: 4th bone, but the monster cackles that he is wrong because the answer is his own name. It lunges forward, a self-proclaimed riddle monster about to learn a very hard lesson in subjective reality, because Sulla just activates his bloodline's thermal vision, pinpointing 3 glowing heat signatures in the sand, and locks onto one of them, unleashing a bolt of pure lightning, which slams directly into the riddle monster's smug, skeletal mouth. With the creature's remains splattered across the sand, Sulla coldly states that if he says the answer is 4th bone, then it is 4th bone. 2 nearby spectators are sweating bullets, one whispering about how tyrannical he is, the other just praying he did not accidentally offend him. But unfortunately for Sulla, his little display of power has attracted a new kind of weirdo, a jagged-toothed creature who wants to peel his skin off and turn it into an exquisite collectible, summoning a fortress from the ground. A massive stone castle now dominates the battlefield, a monument to one guy's terrible hobbies, as the collector promises to make Sulla's skin look very pretty. And the fortress's defenses immediately open fire, launching a massive bladed projectile. The bolt carves a crater into the earth, just barely missing its target, but the warrior stands his ground, facing down a line of cloaked figures, who are all having a meltdown over a guy summoning a literal city, except for one guy who dismisses it as a flashy, inefficient waste of power. And he might have a point, because the entire fortress starts moving across the desert, while a skeletal figure on top summons his brothers to join the fight. The battlefield erupts into total chaos as he orders his forces to flank and destroy everyone, but the new summons are 2 colossal, shadowy monsters who are immediately disappointed, complaining they were called out just to deal with a bunch of ants. At that exact moment, a warrior with glowing eyes looks up, having taken that comment extremely personally. While a bystander panics about his life savings, another is shocked that the princess has enough power for a talent seal, and that Princess Yvette calmly tells everyone to take a breather, before erupting in a pillar of green light, transforming into a celestial giant and asking who exactly is the ant now. Her glowing green hand descends from the sky, catching one of the shadow monster's massive blades mid-swing, and with a brutal twist, she rips the weapon free and uses it to slice right through them, leaving the sword embedded in the ground, while her companion dryly notes he only suggested using enemy weapons in class once. From the fortress, a storm of black arrows rains down on them, but another warrior leaps into the air, gracefully launching a spinning disc of energy to counter the assault. The disc slams into the ground with catastrophic force, sending a shockwave of dirt and debris everywhere. And through the dust, a horned demon warrior appears, gritting his teeth in shock, absolutely terrified as Yvette's colossal green form looms over him, blade raised for the final blow. His eyes go wide with pure, unadulterated fear, as her strike tears a massive, jagged chasm straight through the desert landscape. Far away, an ill-feared man spots the disturbance on the horizon just as a small dragon flies past the sunset, and Yvette stands in the aftermath, staring at the fresh canyon she just carved, unaware of winged figures watching from the shadows. Though her companion quickly identifies a silhouette as the infamous evil dragon of No Man's Land, deciding it is best to stay very, very careful. So Yvette, glowing with residual power, formally agrees to the elf's proposal, seeing them as powerful allies, and they shake on a deal to split the hero's arm 50-50 while the elf privately schemes to just snatch it all for himself later. As night falls, the different groups set up campfires across the vast, starry desert, where a blonde girl and a purple-haired woman share a quiet meal. And Yvette's group settles in, taking a rare moment of peace, but she's still wary of her new demon allies, deciding to go chat with them while her knight captain vows to atone for his past crimes. And as Yvette approaches, the purple-haired demon wonders if the kid with her is some kind of slave. Meanwhile, the knight captain is still complaining about having to make a deal with demons over a hero's remains, going on a rant about his idol, the flawless knight, who never got a single scar, which is why he refuses to let his own handsome face get damaged. His vain monologue is interrupted by a hooded stranger who appears out of thin air, asking the little blue-haired girl for a taste of her cheese, and she nervously refuses, clutching the expensive snack her mom bought her, which is when the knight captain finally notices the new guy and completely freaks out, screaming about where he came from. He stammers, asking if the cloaked figure is a demon, and the man, revealing a scarred, blue-haired face, just smiles and says yes, prompting the captain to yell over to Yvette's group, asking if this guy is with them, but they can only stare back, completely bewildered. As the demon draws his dual blades ready for a fight, he unleashes a fluid sword technique, blue energy slicing through the air and drawing blood, instantly wounding the knight captain and his two companions, and one of them recognizes the attack in horror. As the demon Marovich walks forward, his target clear, leaving the wounded knights terrified on the sand behind him. Yvette immediately draws her own sword, ready to defend her people, but Marovich ignores her, revealing he is here on his master's orders to capture her specifically. Down in the sand, a single severed finger lies next to the dropped piece of cheese, and Yvette realizes this demon knows the flawless knight's techniques, making him incredibly dangerous, so she asks her new allies for help. But the elf steps in, trying to de-escalate and negotiate first, creating a tense standoff between him and Marovich, the two locking eyes with silent, deadly intensity, until Marovich smirks, recognizing the elf's murderous aura, calling him Gelong and his partner Fea, laughing at how big Fea has gotten, and in a bizarre Chibe-style cutaway, he muses on how they are closer than actual brothers. A warning shout comes too late as Marovich lunges for Fea with glowing blue claws. His attack a deliberate feint to make them lower their guard. He manifests a spectral dragon soul, pleading for them to just let him complete his mission without a fuss. As the massive shadow dragon looms over them all, a clear threat, and Marovich clashes blades with Gelong, screaming about how he trusted him 5 years ago, pointing to his scarred face and mocking his old title, the Unblemished Knight, bellowing that his ruined appearance is all Gelong's fault. The horned woman Fair raises a golden shield, yelling for Marovich to calm down, but he just scoffs, effortlessly dodging her shield bash, and unleashes another fluid sword attack, his only thought to complete his master's orders, which makes Gelong realize he's been brainwashed, leaving him no choice but to let Fair beat him awake, her fist glowing with golden energy. She lands a massive punch, but Marovich just phases through it, retorting that he is perfectly clear-headed as he activates a mist mirage, and Fair's follow-up strike smashes into the empty ground, because Marovich has completely vanished into the thick fog, prompting a warning for Yvette to stay close. But Gelong activates his own thermal vision, his eyes glowing green to cut through the illusion. It works, revealing Marovich just as he unleashes a massive torrent of fire, which collides with their defenses and erupts into a swirling cage of flames, trapping the entire group inside. And now Gelong's thermal vision is useless, blocked by the intense heat, leaving them blind to where the next attack will come from. So Fair tells Fea it is time to debut that new shield technique he was working on, activating her own armament to defend against the incoming thunder strike. Just then, one of their healers screams, clutching a bloody hand and crying that she is in too much pain to concentrate, and before anyone can react, a razor-sharp projectile zips right past her head. A blue-haired figure looms over her, explaining he only disabled her hands because he did not want to kill indiscriminately, so she should really appreciate his good intentions. While outside their golden shield formation, the ring of fire rages on, trapping them completely. The newcomer smirks, wondering aloud how he should break their watertight defense, and one of the knights recognizes him instantly. But the knight is furious, screaming that a stinking demon is not worthy of the name Marovich. Apparently, this demon just insulted his idol, and as a true Ainea knight, he is contractually obligated to get mad about it. So the demon decides to drop a little history lesson, asking if this superfan knows why his hero was only ever called the second knight, and he leans in close, whispering the truth, because the title of first knight always belonged to King Hoya's eldest son. In the demon race, however, strength is all that matters, which he finds so much more fair, because as long as he is strong enough, even becoming the new demon emperor is not out of the question. With that, he transforms, a colossal blue dragon erupting from his body and slamming into the ground, circling the trapped knights inside their fiery prison. Yvette starts giving orders, telling her team to watch for an attack from above, and right on cue the dragon dives straight for them as the fire below pulses with violet energy. Suddenly a massive sword materializes from the sky, a celestial body technique aimed right at the dragon's head, but he dodges it with a cocky laugh, calling it an insignificant trick. Only to be met by a rapid tooth rush from below as jagged purple energy blades tear towards him, and a masked warrior with white hair bursts from the group, radiating pure power, as a gargantuan pillar of energy descends from the heavens to finish the job. The Sky Cluster Sword Kiss slams directly into the dragon, a direct hit of dark electric force. Turns out someone was watching the whole thing through a portal. Disappointed, the evil dragon failed so spectacularly at capturing Princess Yvette. Back on the ground, Gelong is still crackling with purple lightning, the energy surging into the night sky. And Fea realizes the dragon retreated without even using his full power, to which Gelong admits it was all an act, on both their parts. This triggers a flashback with Gelong holding a blade to his own face, asking if someone can see it, showing the real, blonde Marovich sitting with a woman, telling her that getting a cool scar is totally worth the pain. Because he finally found a demon strong enough to leave a mark, and he needs to maintain it, since the future First Knight cannot have a plain, white face. And when she asks why he does not just cut himself, he scoffs, saying it only counts if it is from a real all-out battle. He looks in the mirror, admiring his new rugged look, declaring he wants the world's recognition. But more importantly, he also wants self-recognition. Then in the present, Gelong walks up and uses a healing spell on his head, asking why he did not mention he was injured earlier, completely oblivious. Which causes the fake Marovich to scream in despair as his handsome scar vanishes from his face. We see the demon who trained him, who told him to make the acting realistic because he was secretly stronger than his mentor. And this observer notes that the fake Marovich has changed, becoming someone who would never acknowledge a master. Meanwhile, the defeated Dragon Lord meets with a cloaked figure, blaming his failure on bad intel. Because he was told there were only 4 humans, not a 5th seal powerhouse who could injure him, making the job too risky. So he tells the cloaked man to inform his boss that he needs assistance to finish the mission, and his price is 10 bottles of Hoya's seal power elixirs, enough to help him break through to the 6th seal, a demand that seems absolutely insane considering the stakes. Even a top-tier knight can only handle 1 bottle every 6 months before literally exploding from the sheer power, so 10 bottles is pure delusion. The Dragon Lord argues he needs to hoard them to get stronger, but the cloaked man insists the boss will only approve 1. Leading to some intense haggling under the stars, with the Dragon Lord threatening to walk if he does not get at least 3, until the cloaked figure finally caves, agreeing to a deal. The final number is 2 bottles, and until they are delivered, the Dragon Lord will just keep an eye on the princess from a distance. Back at the heroes' camp, Fea tells Gelong they just need to do their part, rest up, and head for the Mud Cow Town ruins in the morning. But at that exact moment, Sulla, the green-haired knight, comes looking for them. And Fea decides it is time to finally tell her and her crew the whole truth, which leaves the entire group of horned refugees completely, utterly speechless. Their shock immediately turns to gratitude, and they all drop to their knees, apologizing for their past rudeness and thanking the lords profusely, with Sulla admitting they are ashamed they have no way to repay them for saving their lives again and again. But Fea tells them to get up, saying all the repayment she needs is their help in getting her severed arm back from a guy named Jair. Sulla's face hardens with determination, promising they will follow any command, so Fea tells them to rest up and prepare for the battle tomorrow. Elsewhere, Yvette asks Fea to start a fire since the desert nights are freezing, and she uses a simple ignition spell, a common trick for blacksmiths and campers, to get the flames going, creating a warm, crackling bonfire in seconds. The whole group settles down for the night, huddled together for warmth around the flames. But one of the younger knights cannot sleep and quietly asks Gelong if a certain story about him is true. While unbeknownst to them, someone is eavesdropping on their late-night conversation. The girl asks about an incident at Tears Lake Village involving him and the Sage of Holy Light Sovka, but Sulla cuts in, saying if she is going to ask about gossip, she should ask about the destruction of White Road City, not some romance rumor. And Gelong just tells them to get some sleep, deciding it is a story for another time. He changes his mind though, figuring he might as well tell them what really happened back then, explaining that his team passed by the ruined village and he went in alone, but Sovka insisted on following him for safety, where they found the lingering wraiths of a newlywed couple murdered on their wedding day, their resentment keeping them tied to the ruins, their ghostly figures whispering about their big joyous day. Gelong quiets his companion, his own power flaring up to confront the spirits. And he asks Sovka to use her holy light to eliminate them, but she hesitates, saying she wants them to find peace in their final moments, not just be destroyed. He understands, and she unleashes her talent seal, a warm embrace of holy light, which illuminates the skeletal forms of the wraiths, purifying their resentment and showing them as they were on their wedding day, finally at peace. After it is done, Gelong and the blindfolded Sovka stand together in the quiet ruins. A moment of silent understanding passing between them. Sovka's expression is serene, her duty fulfilled, and in that shared silence their hands reach for one another, intertwining in a firm, reassuring grip, which causes Gelong's fist to clench instantly. He whips out his blade in a flash of light, a pure reflex action right in front of her. Sovka, the blade inches from her face, simply says stop, then asks if perhaps she was being too presumptuous. Gelong, looking intensely serious, just has one word for her: apologize. She is completely baffled, having no idea what she did wrong, so he explains that touching him without warning makes him very uncomfortable, which is one way to put it, and she quickly apologizes for being rash. Finishing the story, Gelong tells his current companions it was just a subconscious counterattack because he thought she was an enemy. A perfectly reasonable reaction, according to Fea, who dryly notes that it is exactly the kind of thing he would do. From the sleeping pile, one of the knights just thinks, awesome. The next morning, the team arrives at the sprawling, desolate ruins of Mud Cow Town. Fea assesses the complex terrain, deciding she will infiltrate alone while the others lay in wait for a coordinated attack on Jer. Down in the town, a crowd is gathering for an assessment test to join King Jer's command, and Gelong spots a group of human slaves being herded by demons who are bragging about stealing them from the royal court. With one of the slavers complaining that finding the women Jer wants is mostly just luck, and Gelong makes a mental note to have Yvette rescue these people after their own mission is done. The demons laugh about trading the men to the Skin Hunter Brotherhood, a bunch of psychos with a very fashionable hobby. An examiner shouts for the next person, announcing there is only one spot left for the day, which is the perfect opening for our heroes to slip in and take the test. Inside, the hall is packed with demons eager to join up, all eyes fixed on the stage, where the chief examiner, a horned demon named Clover, begins his introduction, and he finishes with a sharp-toothed grin, clarifying their recruitment standard. They only accept elites, no trash. Of course, some horned wannabe decides to pick on the quiet, hooded guy to score points with the examiner, calling him ugly trash and threatening to cut his ears off just to look tough. But the examiner, a pale demon named Clover, cuts everyone off, announcing the test is starting now. He gestures to a dark crystal ball, explaining it measures both talent and raw power. Though he privately admits power levels are not everything, a skilled fire user could still torch a higher-level ice user. So he tells the first nervous applicant to just put his hand on the orb, promising a fair judgment. He even offers some twisted encouragement, saying King Jer loves ruthless talent, so no need to be scared. The recruit touches the orb, revealing a weak first seal electric talent, and meekly asks if he passed, which is when Clover's friendly demeanor completely vanishes, his face twisting into a shadowy sneer as a single word drips from his mouth: trash. He then addresses the entire room, telling anyone else who thinks they are trash to just get lost and not waste his time. And to prove his point, a grotesque tongue whips out from his mouth with blinding speed. It slams the failed recruit into the wall with enough force to break him in two, painting the stones green, while Clover blankly asks what the point of living is if you already know you're garbage, leaving the poor demon's bisected corpse slumped against the wall as a warning. The impact also blasted a hole in the wall, revealing a pulsating, grotesque ball of fused bodies being dragged from the rubble, and our hero can only stare, wondering what fresh hell that thing is. Turns out it is the great king's favorite concubine, a brand new creation they were storing next door. So Clover immediately starts shouting for the soldiers to carefully move the king's horrifying art project, and the grunts get to work hauling the writhing mass of flesh across the floor. It's a monument to pure suffering, faces locked in silent screams bound together in an inescapable nightmare. Through it all, our hero's expression remains ice cold, his focus absolute. His mind flashing to other horrors of pale limbs clawing from a swirling abyss, and then to a memory of a hooded man in a red scarf shackled and defeated, his face lost to shadow and exhaustion. Back in the hall, Clover casually leans back, completely unbothered by the carnage, and tells everyone to continue the test. He points right at our hero, demanding he step up next, but the man tries to stall, claiming he has an upset stomach. Until the bully from before tries to cut in line, only for our hero's entire demeanor to shift into something dark and menacing. Stepping forward, he asks to confirm the rules: strong enough or ruthless enough, that is it. While the other recruits whisper about how he is obviously unqualified, not realizing he is just buying time to find an escape route. Clover is losing patience, confirming the test is just a quick power scan and telling him to get on with it. Which is when our hero looks down and quietly asks a terrifying question: are you strong enough? The examiner is floored, sputtering about being a third seal and more than qualified to judge him, and with his tongue lolling out, he threatens a painful death if this is a stall tactic, demanding he touch the orb now. In that instant, a flash of violet energy erupts from a shadowy hand, and our hero lunges forward, his attack so sudden and overwhelming that the examiner recoils in pure shock, his hand closing around the glowing crystal itself. Clover is completely overpowered, pinned by a force he never saw coming, leaving our hero standing calmly with the orb in his hand, his green eyes burning with cold confidence, his face splattered with a bit of blood but his expression utterly unreadable. He holds the pulsating orb of light, its energy radiating through the silent room. A single speck of blood near his piercing eye, the only evidence of the confrontation. The other recruits are just frozen, sweating and staring in disbelief at what just happened. As our hero gently places the glowing test device back on its pedestal, he then asks the examiner's terrified, glasses-wearing assistant if he is qualified now, and the demon can only stammer that yes, he is very qualified and should please go rest in the camp tent until the king calls. Inside the tent, our hero immediately pulls out a scroll, flashing back a few hours to when he received it. Where his ally explained that this was a magic communication device, whatever he writes on the original, the copy will show in real time. His gloved hand then writes a simple, glowing message: "I have infiltrated Mud Cow Town." Miles away in a hidden cave, his team waits anxiously for a signal, and suddenly the scroll in their hands lights up with his message. The whole group huddling around to read the update from their man on the inside. His plan is simple: first, get intel on King Jair, and second, find a way to get him alone for a surprise attack. At that exact moment, a massive red-skinned guard storms into the camp, bellowing for the outstanding new recruit. And inside the tent, our hero senses the approach, his hand glowing with energy. The guard asks the assistant if the new guy has been searched, but the assistant nervously admits he was too scared to even try. So the big guard rips open the tent flap himself, ordering the recruit to stand for a body search. Without a word, the man removes his top, revealing a lean, powerful build, and calmly agrees, letting the massive demon grip his shoulders and begin the pat-down. The guard searches everything but finds no suspicious items, so he tells the recruit to follow him. King Jair wants a private meeting. Turns out, just a minute earlier, he'd sliced open his own arm, shoved the communication scroll inside the wound, and then used a healing spell to seal the skin over it perfectly. In the quiet of a massive stone church, a bell hangs silent, and the guard leads him in, announcing his arrival to the king before being dismissed. As the guard walks away, the recruit is left alone in the grand hall, his eyes narrowing as he realizes exactly why Jair is so interested in him. From deeper within the church, the sound of a piano echoes, played by a monstrous gray-skinned demon with wild hair and jagged teeth, one of his hands looking surprisingly human as it presses the keys. While our hero watches, his own green eyes glowing in the dim light. The music is a strange duet, one human hand and one demonic claw working in eerie harmony. King Jair stops playing and turns, acknowledging his guest has arrived. The Demon King grins, explaining that he plays the piano whenever he gets the urge to kill, and tells the recruit not to be nervous. This is just a simple interview. He asks if there is anything the recruit wants to know about his army. But our hero flips the question, saying he is only curious why a demon would want to suppress his killer instinct. Jair gestures to a bandit being captured outside, explaining he's trying his best to be a demon who does not kill, a concept so alien that our hero can only think how unnatural it is for their kind to deny what they are. A demon's instinct to destroy is a gift from the Demon Emperor, a core part of their being. But Jair claims they have the freedom to choose a different path. He then turns the tables, asking if the recruit recognizes the human music he was just playing, and our hero coldly denies it, his face a perfect mask of indifference. That was the wrong answer, because Jair instantly smashes the piano to splinters with a furious blow. He grabs the recruit by the throat, snarling that he saw him frown at a wrong note, proving he was lying, his glowing red eye boring into him as he gives him one last chance to be honest. The king's grip tightens as he asks the real question: is his bloodlust driven by nature or by passion? With blood trickling from his mouth, our hero just grins, his eyes alight with dark amusement as he answers, half and half, and Jair can feel his pulse, realizing with grim satisfaction that he is telling the truth. The king mocks him for surrendering to his nature, for not seeking freedom from the demon emperor's shackles, calling him pathetic for developing a passion for being a slave instead of a master. But our hero throws it right back, pointing out that an absolutely obedient slave is exactly what the king needs to do his dirty work. Jair leans in close, his monstrous teeth filling the frame, and asks what he hopes to gain by serving him. And in that moment, it's like our hero becomes a shadow standing right behind the king, his green eyes glowing with purpose. He replies that only by the king's side can he truly satisfy his desire to kill, a reason so pure Jair instantly believes him. And so the pact is sealed, a bond forged in shared darkness and a hunger for bloodshed. Two pairs of feet walk together across the cold stone floor, their steps in perfect ominous sync. Our hero's face now set with cold, predatory focus as he follows his new master. But then a small girl with bright red hair comes running towards him, holding up a crown of flowers and shouting, "Papa, look." She offers him the crown, explaining how the flowers match his skin, all while our hero watches from the shadows. The little girl kneels down, clutching the flowers she so carefully collected, telling him she waited for them to fall naturally instead of picking them, a gesture of pure innocence, which earns her a brutal backhand across the face, sending her flying. She is left stunned on the cold floor, the flower crown shattered as he towers over her, screaming about how she should not run around, his voice echoing as she curls into a ball, bleeding and terrified. And then he has the nerve to compare her to a dog, wondering why humans are so much harder to train. Through her tears, she just begs Papa to stop, pleading that she was wrong. But he just yanks her up by the rope tied around her neck, tightening his grip as he spits out his final command, that this lowly slave is never ever allowed to call him that. Just then a horned underling sprints in, shouting about an evil dragon flying in from the east, and the king, completely unfazed, figures today is a perfect day to meet this legendary beast. He coldly orders the girl Xena back to the basement, leaving her to whimper on the floor, then tells his men he is very satisfied with his new recruit and to take him to the camp. So our hero is led away, his hooded figure disappearing into the fortress, his green eyes burning with a cold, calculating intensity, but not before he throws one last look back at the small, red-haired girl in the distance. Meanwhile, soaring high above the desert, the so-called evil dragon is just trying to find the ninth princess. While on the ground, the king slams his hand against a massive bell announcing his presence. From the darkness, a monstrous form with glowing red eyes looms over a jagged floating stone. But a different set of eyes, these ones glowing blue, spot a powerful seal emanating from the town's bell tower, prompting the winged creature to dive straight towards it. A bright beam of energy just barely missing it as it dodges through the air. The beast now soaring over the desolate landscape, its mission clearly interrupted. Back in town, our hero stands on a rooftop, vowing to take back that very same power for himself. A horned demon is busy celebrating King Jair's might for scaring off the dragon, but the king is all business, ordering the sentries to stay sharp. And our hero grudgingly admits the guy's military discipline is actually pretty decent. Down below, as soldiers patrol the dusty paths, a glowing green serpent slithers silently through the thorns. And one of the guards yelps, complaining about being pricked by the brambles, his buddy agreeing it happened to him too. Never noticing the faint green glow now pulsing on their skin, a seal so subtle they cannot even feel it. From above, a bright green line now tracks their every move, an invisible trail left by the serpent's magic. Because our hero knows a guy like Jair would not just have one simple patrol route. So he decides to map out every single path for a future decapitation strike. His planning complete, the green-eyed man holds up a single purple flower, his next move already in mind, which brings us to a pair of tired, pale eyes belonging to a very familiar red-haired girl, who sits chained by the ankle in a dark cell, weaving flowers on a bed of hay. A voice from the door startles her and she looks up, wondering who is there. As a clawed hand reaches through the bars, offering her a few of those same purple linking flowers, and her entire face lights up with a pure, unadulterated joy that is almost painful to see. She steps out of the cell, figuring her daddy did not like her last flower crown because it was ugly, and our hero just wonders why the door was not even locked, holding out the flowers as he asks why a human calls a monster like Jair her father. Her answer is horrifyingly simple. She thinks he is the best person she has ever met because only parents could be this good to a child. Explaining how the collar is to protect her from bad guys and that he only hits her a few times when she messes up. Our hero is floored, asking what kind of monsters she met before this guy, but she cannot quite remember. Her mind blocking out a past trauma where she was left for dead and trusted to Jair by some shadowy lord named Barnier. It hits him that the poor girl thinks this abuse is kindness, so he tries a different angle, asking if she'd like to see the world outside. And her eyes widen with simple, honest curiosity, making him realize she needs a real mentor, someone to undo years of twisted brainwashing. She gets excited, thinking he must be incredibly wise since he knows the flower's name, and begs him to tell her stories since she is not allowed to have friends. But he knows the priority is figuring out Jair's background and cannot afford to get sidetracked. He tells her he has to go, promising to come back and play later. Leaving her alone in the cell, where she notices her collar has come loose and panics, knowing Daddy will be angry. Her small hands trembling as she forcefully tightens the rope around her own neck, revealing a series of dark, Roman numeral-like tattoos branded into her skin. Miles away in the desert, a weary traveler is told the ninth princess is holed up in Jair's dangerous territory, so the bearded man Simon sighs and agrees to go negotiate with him. He melts into the ground, activating a talent called Park Walker Shadow Dive, his shadowy form seeping into a furnished room from above. Right where a certain monster king is pouring himself a glass of red wine, Jair stands inside a thin circular barrier, a seal designed to detect other power fluctuations, and sure enough, he senses the glowing green serpent hiding in the shadows. But our hero, watching from the serpent's eyes, dismisses the king's detection spell as mere child's play. Jair smirks, telling the intruder to stop hiding because he has already been found. While the serpent simply narrows its eye, focusing its power, a swirling puddle of black shadow begins to form on the floor right in front of the king, and from it rises the bearded man Simon, who immediately starts roasting Jair's ugly face. The king, unimpressed, sips his wine and notes the human has guts for coming alone. But Simon just gets straight to the point. They are only here to find someone and want to be left alone. This audacity infuriates Jair, who cannot believe someone would sneak into his house and then start making demands, leaning forward with pure menace in his eyes, calling the old geezer rude. Simon is not having it, pulling out a glowing purple lantern and threatening to end Jair in under 3 minutes, when a voice suddenly crackles to life from inside the lantern itself, prompting Simon to call out for his boss to help him deal with this obstacle. At the sight of the lantern, Jair's eyes go wide, recognizing it as a legendary treasure that can cross space, and Simon just smirks, thinking he has finally got the upper hand. But then, with the most fantastically smug grin, Jair pulls out an identical purple lantern, saying, "What a coincidence, I have one too," leaving Simon utterly, completely, and hilariously gobsmacked. A shadowy figure emerges between them, telling them both to knock it off, revealing a smiling blonde man who declares they are all friends here working for him. This man, Matthias, sits calmly as if holding court between his two powerful, bickering subordinates, and our hero Serpent realizes this is the true mastermind behind everything, the one who hired the kidnappers and controls Jair. Matthias grabs one of their wrists, calling him a rook, then grabs the other, calling him a bishop, explaining that his little game can only continue if they both stay in their assigned places. His men praise his wisdom, confident he will restore their orthodox lineage, a classic villainous motive if there ever was one. And Matthias just grins, changing the subject to ask Ger about a bounty he put on 4 assassins. Ger confirms it, but Matthias orders him to cancel it, telling him not to worry, placing a hand firmly on top of the powerful king's head like a pet, reminding him that he was chosen specifically because he was supposed to be obedient and easy to teach. His smile is pure poison as he asks Ger not to make him worry. And through a clenched fist, Ger relents but reminds Matthias of his promise of freedom. Matthias just scoffs. "Oh right, freedom," pulling out a small, golden, fish-shaped trinket, explaining that if he crushes this half, the other half planted in Ger's head will detonate, blowing him to bits. He dangles the trinket, promising to hand it over once he wins his game, condescendingly asking if the thought of freedom makes him happy. With the power dynamic firmly re-established, he gives Simon his orders, then tells Ger they are going to his concubine's chambers to check out some new women he acquired for him. From Simon's lantern comes a simple, "As you command." As Matthias leaves, demanding a guest room, the shadowy serpent decides its next move is simple: follow Ger and see what happens next. Deep in the shadows, another one of the cursed hangs upside down, a prisoner in his own home. And somewhere far below, a cloaked figure descends a winding staircase into absolute darkness, while our hero in his serpent form peeks around a corner, tailing Ger into the abyss. The cloaked man stops dead, confronted by a pulsating, grotesque sphere made of countless tangled bodies. A demon with needle-sharp teeth holds a purple lantern, confirming the obvious: a new batch is about to be born. Nearby, a grotesque, multi-armed creature presides over a shimmering red sack, a womb for something truly awful. And inside, the thing is already kicking, stretching the membrane to its breaking point, the surface distorting as it prepares to tear its way into the world. A gray, clawed hand rips through the sack, slick with viscous fluid, and a horned demon slithers out, already kneeling and rasping for its first orders. The multi-armed creature just watches as more of these hellish eggs pulsate on the floor, ready to hatch. A blond man appears, admiring his work with a smug grin. He's created human-demon hybrids that are born as adults, instantly loyal and ready for war, a disposable army on demand. The newborn legion bows in unison, their voices echoing in the cavern, ready to serve their master. And the demon commander gives them the rundown: they will train under Lord Matthias, the mastermind behind this whole nightmare. As for the ones that did not hatch properly, well, they are just failures to be destroyed. Matthias holds the lantern, waxing poetic about how he is carving the demon race into art, a sentiment the monster finds utterly baffling. Later at his villa, Matthias sips wine on his balcony, complaining about how unromantic his demonic colleagues are. At that exact moment, a group of young women walks up the path toward his estate, chatting among themselves about their new lord, one cynically expecting some ugly old pervert but grateful to not be starving. And a moment later, a deal is struck with a simple handshake. Matthias appears before them in a flash, all smiles and charm, taking one of the girl's hands and introducing himself. And she is instantly starstruck, barely able to believe this handsome nobleman is the one taking them in. The others are just as impressed, swooning over his elegance and good looks, a far cry from the brutish nobles they are used to. They all crowd around him, thanking him profusely, one even begging to be his personal maid. With that same warm smile, he tells them to stand together, nice and close. And the girls happily oblige, huddling up with bright, expectant faces, completely oblivious to the horror about to unfold. In a flash of agony, their bodies begin to contort, their faces twisting in silent screams as dark energy erupts from them. Matthias stands calmly in a corridor, manipulating the swirling mass of dark energy, absorbing their shadowy forms into one horrific silhouette. The final product is a pulsating, nightmarish creature made of fused limbs and bodies, twitching as a single grotesque entity. His hand emerges from the shadows, clutching the spirit realm lantern that powers this whole sadistic display. And with a flick of his wrist, the horrifying mass is bound in purple chains, his new favorite concubine trapped and ready. The man who's been watching all this identifies the power. Flesh art mixed pigments, a truly inspired name for such a monstrosity. Then he casually tells his demonic subordinates he is off to a ball, leaving them to deal with the aftermath. The demons depart, leaving the fused creature behind a large wooden door. But from the shadows, a hooded figure watches them leave, his eyes fixed on that very door. It is our hero, and he steps forward, casting a green healing spell on the writhing mass. But the light flickers and dies, completely ineffective against this dark magic. He realizes Matthias's power did not just trap them, it fused them into a single being that cannot be separated. And his eye narrows, the reptilian slit of a pupil focusing on the grim reality of the situation. Elsewhere, a monstrous man with a fur coat looms over a young red-haired girl in a dark corridor, demanding to see the number on her neck while a shadowy observer watches from a doorway. And the girl trembles, her hands gripping a heavy collar with a Roman numeral etched into it. The observer, our hero again, is stunned. He'd been warned about these numbers, and now he knows he is not the only one in the world marked this way. The girl offers the monster a wreath of flowers, but he just rants about how he fought for freedom while she wastes her own power. She gently places the crown on his head anyway, a strange glowing mark on her wrist, then smiles, telling him she is afraid that if she were free she would not get to see him happy, calling him dad. For a brief moment, the terrifying creature looks almost soft, wearing the delicate flower crown, but the moment passes and he orders her to get to business, telling her to clean up a pile of corpses to increase her sea of corpses and blood power. With a pained expression, she clenches her fist, red energy swirling around it, and slams it into the ground, unleashing a violent shockwave of dark power. Blood splatters as the collar around her neck begins to crack under the strain, the Roman numeral Roman 12 distorting as the collar shatters completely, unleashing a torrent of red energy, and the hidden observer watches, recognizing the terrifying power she is tapping into. Her talent seal is revealed. Sea of Corpses and Blood Authority, happy day. As dark, malformed wings burst from her back, fueled by a pulsing, sinister aura, and a colossal, nightmarish vision with massive red eyes manifests in the darkness above her, the true face of her power. Our hero's glowing green eyes reflect the sheer intensity of the dark energy being unleashed. Turns out this talent seal is actually a parasite, a dark creature that feeds on death, growing inside its host until its happy day, the day it is born into the world. And now she stands alone in a swirling abyss of red and black, surrounded by its watchful eyes, a power only the wedge of heaven can suppress. The red-haired girl Xena kneels in agony, dark energy smoking from her wounds, crying out for her dad to save her. And the monster realizes he has to use the thing stuck in its back to force the entity down. Because the shadowy parasite is now fully manifested, a horrifying creature with glowing red eyes and a jagged spike in its center. He charges forward, clawed hand outstretched, right into the violent surge of dark energy. But dark tendrils erupt from his own back, brutally pinning Xena to the ground. The sharp spikes piercing straight through her body in a spray of blood. The cloaked observer looks down at the aftermath, his expression grim as he whispers her name. Xena. She lies defeated in a massive pool of her own blood, the battle seemingly over. A black snake with glowing green eyes appears, our hero's true form, his mind already working. And he knows that if Xena and her monstrous dad Jer team up, winning is impossible, he has to free her from his control. A shadowy voice asks if he wants to save her or steal her power for himself. But he is resolved, he just does not want her to follow in his footsteps. Meanwhile, a purple-haired woman strategizes with her team. They have to wait for Jer to be separated from Xena to make their move. She reminds them of their royal duty. If they cannot fight the demon race, they are not fit to be children of the king. Then offers to write them a letter of recommendation for their help, a note they can give to the king for a handsome reward. And they eagerly accept, already imagining the important positions they will be given. The younger members of the group start daydreaming about buying houses for their parents and becoming powerful earls, their futures looking bright. But the purple-haired princess cuts them off, warning them not to talk like that. It is bad luck, because people who talk about what they will do after the war is over tend to die horribly. Their faces freeze in absolute terror, while the princess just throws her head back and laughs. Back with our villain, the blonde man sits at a chessboard, plotting his next move. His troops are growing stronger every day, hidden away and ready for deployment. For his hostage, he plans to capture the 9th Princess Yvette, a simple task with a little help from his evil dragon. The only problem is his allies. The one who sold him Gelong's severed arm has vanished without a trace, so he has to count on someone else, someone in the desolate ruins of White Road City. He walks through the ruins with a companion, confident that the eternal demon King Xiu will keep his promise to meet, admiring the king's elegant handwriting as a sign of his character. Suddenly, a mysterious patterned sphere rolls across the path right in front of them, and the blonde man's eyes narrow, instantly on high alert. He approaches a figure sitting on a throne in the ruins, who calmly asks him to hand over the ball. Bowing slightly, he picks up the sphere to offer it to the seated king. But while he is all smiles on the outside, he is signaling to his companion to watch their surroundings, ready to run at the first sign of trouble. He offers his gift, Gelong's severed arm, a perfect replacement for the one the Demon King lost. The pale, glowing figure just looks down, flatly refusing. He does not want to mess with it. The blonde man's face remains a perfect mask, betraying nothing. He pivots smoothly, offering to find other suitable limbs in exchange for the Demon King's small assistance in the future. A chess piece is moved, the White King, as he remembers a promise from over 20 years ago, a promise from King Hoya to spare the remnants of the previous dynasty, granting them titles and land. The blonde man's face twists in shadow over the board, sneering that since Hoya started this game, he does not get to decide when it is over. And somewhere else, the red-haired girl Xena stands before a wall of crude chalk drawings, a dark tentacle descending from above. She has a noose around her neck, but she is smiling, a blush on her cheeks as she says, "Ah, you are here again." The tentacle is gone, replaced by a cloaked man with piercing green eyes standing in the gloom of her stone cell. His expression is a perfect blank slate, not giving away a single thing, which is a stark contrast to the happy little family she's drawn in chalk on the wall, and Xena just smiles, asking him if he has finally thought of an interesting story from the outside world. He asks if she knows of White Road City, once the richest city in the kingdom. And with a somber look, he decides to tell her a tale, a story about a person he thinks she has quite a lot in common with. 33 years ago, in a city perpetually drenched in an autumn rain, our story begins. It is the story of a boy born in that very season. Into the loving arms of two parents who already seem to be struggling, the father's cough a constant, grim rhythm, his mother's hands stained purple from working at the dye vats day in and day out. And the boy himself, small and wide-eyed, reaching for the endless rain, while his father just keeps coughing by the forge, his health clearly failing, a fact the neighbors are more than happy to gossip about, calling the quiet child a mute and a burden. But his father, exhausted and soaked, always defends him, insisting he is just a little slow to speak, though defending his son does nothing to stop the crushing new taxes levied for a war against the peasant army next door. And his mother's worry is palpable, asking if they can even survive the year. But the little boy just looks back at them, full of trust, running to hug their legs with a smile so bright it could cut through the gloom. And for a moment his parents forget their troubles, smiling back with pure, unfiltered love. The boy is sent off with a few coins to buy the cheapest bread they can afford. And in the market, all anyone can talk about is the peasant uprising in Inia, led by some cook. But the boy is oblivious, clutching his small paper bag as he walks home through a dark, crumbling alley, until the clatter of a stone makes him freeze in his tracks. He thinks his father is too busy to even notice he is gone, right as another stone is tossed his way. And turning around, he sees a stranger leaning against the wall, just watching him. So the boy, without a word, offers up his bag of bread. A gesture that just seems to annoy the stranger, who wonders what this mute brat could possibly want. But the kid just pulls out a piece and offers it with a tiny, hopeful smile, and the stranger takes it, his grip tight enough to crush the small offering. He stares at the bread in his hand, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, leaving the little boy to clutch what is left of his family's dinner to his chest, before the boy suddenly turns and bolts, running deeper into the alley. Straight into the arms of two much bigger problems, a pair of thugs demanding his money. They grab him, mocking his fear, when a new voice cuts through the rain, and it is the stranger stepping between the boy and the thugs, looking utterly unimpressed. The thugs just laugh, figuring they hit the jackpot, a buy-one-get-one-free deal on rich kids. But the stranger's eyes practically glow as he calls their survival of the fittest mentality barbaric, declaring that his father taught him the strong exist to protect the weak, that this is what separates men from beasts. A philosophical debate the thugs are not interested in having as they pull their blades. In that instant, a terrifying demonic silhouette erupts around the stranger, his talent unleashed, King of Kings. The thugs' faces twist into masks of pure, undiluted terror, completely outmatched by the sheer force radiating from this kid. And the little boy just watches from behind, his eyes wide with absolute awe. The stranger tells him there is no need for thanks, that protecting the weak is his duty. Besides, he says with a small smile, he already accepted payment, holding up the piece of bread. And just like that, an unlikely friendship is born in a rainy alley over a shared meal. A friendship that blossoms through a snowy winter, a sunny spring spent running through meadows, and a lazy summer by the river, two boys against the world. But the rain always returns, and one day the little boy is pulling his friend through the streets, rushing to see something exciting, something that turns out to be a massive crowd gathered for a public execution. The noble friend is already bored, wishing he were in a library instead of a mob, but the little boy points toward the gallows, his eyes sparkling with a weird intensity. As the sentence is carried out on a man accused of theft, his hands clawing desperately at the rope around his neck, his face a silent scream of agony as his life is extinguished for all to see, and the little boy watches this horror with a massive, chilling smile on his face, while his noble friend looks on, pale and trembling, hand clamped over his mouth in utter shock. Later, the noble boy tells him he is never coming to a place like this again, lecturing him that as the future Chief Justice, he should not be mixing with shady people. And as they walk, the noble boy confesses he finds the laws too cruel, vowing to reform them one day, a noble sentiment from someone living in a castle that literally looks down on the slums below. Lightning cracks across the sky, a perfect metaphor for the storm that is brewing, and the little boy just clutches the patterned ball his friend gave him, before the noble boy heads home, promising to play again tomorrow, completely unaware of the whispers in the street about a crackdown on rebel sympathizers. He arrives at his grand estate, where a servant informs him his father is waiting, and from the darkness of the study his father's voice booms, lecturing him for neglecting his studies, and the irony mixing with fair-weather friends outside. So he is grounded for a week, ordered to memorize an entire volume of the kingdom's laws. And then his father, the actual Chief Justice, is summoned to a council meeting, leaving the little boy alone in the slums, tossing his ball with a hopeful smile, right before soldiers shove him to the ground, his precious ball rolling away as he falls into the mud. He just kneels there, staring at his lost toy, until a sudden commotion makes him look up in shock. The soldiers are arresting people from the local factories, accusing them of colluding with the enemy. And among them are his parents, dragged away screaming as a soldier rips the boy from their arms. His mother and father are shoved into a prison carriage, their faces etched with despair, and the boy can only run after them, his ball forgotten in the mud. Meanwhile, at the council meeting, the nobles demand a swift and brutal example be made. But the Chief Justice, the noble boy's father, hesitates, arguing it is too cruel to execute over 100 people. A moment of conscience in a room baying for blood. But then comes the but. He argues that letting the spark of rebellion spread would be even worse, dragging everyone into war. So choosing the lesser of two evils, he gives the order, and the gallows are filled once more. And in the crowd below, the little boy collapses to his knees, his world shattering. Seeing his own parents among the condemned, their tear-streaked faces turned to the sky. His own face is a portrait of agony as he sobs, held back by others. But he breaks free, standing right beneath them, reaching up in a final heartbreaking goodbye. The guards watch on, wondering if they should stop the wild child, but their captain, a real humanitarian, decides it is more fun to watch. So they start placing bets on how long the orphan kid can cry before he passes out. Back in the warm, dry mansion, the noble boy is studying by candlelight. He looks out the window, noting the rain is getting heavier, and a servant reminds him he is grounded, forbidden from leaving. But he cannot shake a terrible feeling, a sense that something awful is happening tonight. So he throws open the door, and standing right there in the downpour is a silhouette waiting for him, and the man at the door is a master of understatement, telling the kid nothing is happening outside. Just a little late autumn rain, totally normal for White Road City. Except for the part where a dozen people are hanging from ropes in the downpour. Down below, a small child wails, reaching up to the sky, as his parents, still alive, beg him to let go, to stop watching them suffer. His face is just a mask of pure, unadulterated horror, and their voices keep pleading for him to save himself from this agony. But he cannot, he just clings to their feet, sobbing uncontrollably, his own legs shaking so hard he can barely stand on the muddy ground. Trembling from the cold, the shock, and the sheer weight of it all, every muscle in his body just screaming in protest, until he finally collapses, splashing into the filth, his mouth wide open in a silent scream that the rain just swallows whole, leaving him a broken heap beneath his dying family. That is when a guard wanders over, sizes up the grieving orphan, and calls him useless trash. Apparently this guy had a bet going on how long the kid could hold on, and now he is out his drinking money. So he grabs the boy, telling him to get lost, his hand glowing with just enough magic to be a real jerk about it, yelling at the stinking mute to get his dirty hands off the bodies, and shoves him away from the last thing he has in the world. In that moment, something inside the boy snaps, a mark on his cheek glows, and he explodes with raw power, screaming, "Die!" A wave of pure energy slams into the knights, sending them reeling back in shock. Their whole formation breaking as they scramble for their lives, and the boy is on them in a flash, tackling one to the ground with inhuman strength. But the knight is a pro, swinging a massive war hammer right at his head, connecting with a brutal crack that sends blood flying from the kid's mouth. A single blow launching him backward through the air, and he lands in a crumpled heap right back where he started, under his parents' bodies, totally drained, bloodied, and defeated. In the distance, 3 other knights draw their bows, ready to finish the job. The kid clenches his teeth, trying to endure the agony, as a volley of arrows rains down around him, one of them piercing straight through his leg, pinning him to the mud. But he still manages to drag himself into a dark alleyway, the knights in hot pursuit, their leader barking orders to split up and hunt the little beast down, turning the entire rain-soaked city into a hunting ground. And now he is bleeding out, clinging to a wall just to stay upright, only to stumble into a corner filled with the city's sick and dying, where a skeletal man begs him for a mercy killing, for any kind of release from the pain. And through the rain and blood, the boy just stares, his own suffering reflected in theirs. Suddenly, a dark, monstrous voice whispers in his ear, telling him to help the weak, to give them the release they crave. The entity claims to be a part of him, his partner, his true nature, and it forces the boy's hands around the dying man's throat, mocking his hesitation. As a faint blue light begins to glow in his eye, the creature insists this is all his own free will, even as the boy sobs that he does not want this. But the voice pushes, telling him to stop being weak like his parents, to embrace his destiny to dominate. Insisting that he was born to be a storm, a force of nature meant to sweep across the world, it asks him what he truly wants, what he desires to destroy. And with eyes now glowing a furious red, the boy knows the answer. He wants to grab the rope himself. Elsewhere, 2 knights are searching the same area, complaining about catching diseases from the half-dead peasants. One of them stares down at a sick man on the ground, barely conscious, and draws his sword, ready to put him down like an animal. But then he freezes, his face twisting in sudden terror, because at the end of the alley lies a pile of fresh corpses in a pool of blood, and standing over them is a shadowy figure with glowing eyes looking right at him. It is the boy, staring at his own blood-soaked hands, surrounded by the carnage he created. A strange new tattoo marking his neck, a symbol of his horrific rebirth. And he throws his head back, letting out a scream of pure agony as dark tendrils of power erupt from his body. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a cart full of milk is being escorted through a crowd of starving people. A guard shoves them back, saying the milk is not for them, even as a woman pleads that her child is dying of hunger. A younger guard suggests maybe they could sell a little, but the veteran shuts him down. This milk is for Lady Talia's bath, and they will lose their heads if a single drop is missing. Turns out, Lady Talia is the city's strongest fighter, her power literally fueled by the fear of the populace. The older guard explains their job is to be shepherds, managing the sheep for their lords. A truly heartwarming leadership philosophy. The more afraid the people are, the more docile they become. But a voice cuts through the rain, asking, "Do you understand?" As a blade of red light slashes through the guard, the attacker shatters the cart, sending milk and barrels flying everywhere, leaving the commoners staring in stunned silence as the guard screams in the mud. And a hand reaches down, scooping up the spilled milk now mixed with blood, lifting the grim cocktail to their lips for a drink, while the terrified guard crawls backward, sputtering about a death wish. A bloody pickaxe is raised high, ready to deliver the final blow, and the guard completely folds, begging for his life, swearing he was just following orders from the lords above. But it is too late. The crowd has realized their oppressors are just flesh and blood, that they can die too. A fire has been lit, a refusal to be afraid any longer, And that single act of defiance ignites a citywide uprising. The war for White Road City has begun. Lady Talia herself, standing under an umbrella, casually wonders why her lazy soldiers are suddenly so active. An attendant informs her of a small-scale riot in the outer city led by some kind of beast. He begs her to help suppress the growing mob, but she just sighs. It is such a pain, she just got her nails done. As the city behind her descends into a full-blown war zone, and two desperate soldiers finally reach her, begging for her help against the rebels, she just raises a hand, her eyes glowing with power, and gives a single board command: execute them all without mercy. But her power, which feeds on fear, finds itself starving tonight, because the ignited people have absolutely no fear left to give, and the flames of their rebellion have now reached the nobles' estates, engulfing them completely. The revolt has breached the inner sanctums, leaving bodies scattered across blood-stained courtyards, and inside one mansion, the noble boy's father shoves him toward a room, screaming at him to hide. As a massive crash echoes from the other side of the door, the boy pounds on the wood, yelling for his father, wanting to help, but he knows it is no use, so he turns to the window, his only way out. Remembering the wall-climbing techniques the little mute once taught him, a skill he never thought he'd need, just as another window in the mansion shatters into 1,000 pieces, and he crashes back inside, landing hard on the floor among the broken glass, looking up just in time to witness an absolute nightmare. A shadowy figure stands over his father, pulling a bloody blade from his chest. The boy can only stare in horror, screaming out for his dad. As his father uses his last breath to gasp out a single word, "Run." But the boy is not running, he is lunging forward, wreathed in a sudden, violent purple aura, his face contorted in pure rage, eyes glowing white as he summons a blade of pure energy, and outside a massive bolt of lightning cracks the sky in two. As he slams into his father's killer, his own dormant power exploding to the surface in a wave of grief and fury. And in the aftermath, a lavender-haired figure stares up, their eyes wide with shock at the raw power unleashed. A power that belongs to a young man with a number 12 tattooed on his neck, his face a mask of blood and hollow despair. His mind flashing back to the horrors he has witnessed, barely able to speak, because now he is facing that same lavender-haired person crouched in the ruins as lightning crackles around him. And with a scream of pure rage, he lunges forward, sword drawn and ready to cut down his enemy. This is the end of his story, a bloodbath with no victors, only a lone survivor walking through a city of ghosts. The pain and power inside him finally erupting from his very soul, engulfing his body in a column of vengeful fire. In a different time, a different place, a young girl with red hair sits in a cell, asking why everyone's story has to end so badly, wondering if the darkness inside her companion is to blame. But the man with green eyes tells her the hard truth, that every terrible thing he has ever done was his own choice. His face weary as he stares into the fire, lost in memory, clutching a small wooden knight, a tiny piece of a life that has been burned to the ground, his mind a million miles away from this dark little room, haunted by a demonic power that ticks away like a doomsday clock. And he admits to himself that fighting with anger was always the easy way out. Which is exactly what he is warning this girl not to do, but she just chirps that whatever Papa says must be right, leaving him to sigh at her brainwashing, hoping she will eventually find her own path. Because right now she thinks being called stupid is just Papa's way of keeping her humble. He knows he never grew as a person and hopes that by hearing his story she can avoid his mistakes. So he starts prodding her, asking if sneaking out to collect flowers was her own idea, gently pushing her to think about what she truly wants for change. And right on cue, she brings up a gang of bad guys her papa is worried about. An idea he immediately encourages, telling her to act on her own without reporting to anyone. And she runs off, excited and clueless, waving goodbye to the man who just sent her into a war zone. A shadowy parasite inside him scoffs at the whole grand principal's routine, asking why he cannot just teach the kid to enjoy killing. Calling him a pathetic coward, pushing the next generation into a meat grinder. But the man's glowing green eye shows no remorse, he simply admits he has always been an escaper. Moments later, Hina is telling her papa, a guy named Folded Ear, about her grand plan to scare off the rebel army, her fists clenched with a resolve that is both adorable and deeply concerning, telling the man her goal is to become better, a line so cheesy he can barely keep a straight face. Though she quickly admits she has no idea what that even means, so he just sends her off with a wave, knowing that with enemy agents nearby, sending her far away is actually the safest option, and he watches her go, telling himself that the coming sorrow is all for her own good. With the girl out of the way, he gets down to business, his hand cloaked in shadow, summoning a tiny frog-like creature holding a scroll, signaling the operation is a go. And at that exact moment, another team moves in, a purple-haired woman leading the charge with a map of the patrol routes, a young blonde girl on her team having just finished sharpening their weapons. Their mission clear: monitor the north for the red-haired girl Hina and notify their leader if she returns early, because the plan is to take down Folded Ear before his strongest weapon gets back in town. The man with green eyes is walking through an alley when a shadowy figure leaps down, telling him to halt. The old man recognizes him as a former bodyguard to a princess, forcing him to curse his own carelessness, as the old-timer demands to know why he is here. But their reunion is cut short by a blue-haired warrior who steps out of the shadows, ready for a fight, flashing a smug grin and a taunting gesture at the old man, and the green-eyed man immediately sizes up the situation. This new guy is a complete idiot. A fact proven when Blue Hair immediately confesses he betrayed the princess for a better offer from Folded Ear. Before things can escalate, a hulking shirtless man storms in demanding to know what they are all doing here. And the old man immediately starts arguing with him, accusing him of trying to steal his glory, which devolves into them just screaming that the other one has rocks for brains, their alliance apparently held together by pure spite. Until one of their lackeys just yells for them to get on with it and fight. With that, the blue-haired warrior lunges with a blade of energy, while the big boss strikes with a monstrous claw, the garden erupting in a shockwave of blue and yellow light. As the boss reveals his true form, a snarling demon with glowing red eyes and rows of jagged teeth, prompting the old man to leap into the fray, screaming that he has been waiting for this moment. The boss's fists are cloaked in shadows, his innate talent of an abyss walker flaring to life, but the demon just mocks him for being so fearless over a simple shadow-hopping trick, all while realizing the green-eyed kid is a serious problem and this fight should be way more one-sided. As the two warriors clash in midair, a blur of motion and raw power, the old man lands a solid blow, driving the beastman back with sheer force. Their battle spiraling into the sky as they trade blows, moving further and further from the starting point, which is just fine for the two guys watching from a nearby rooftop taking a much-needed breather, though the blue-haired one refuses to share his very expensive stamina-restoring snack, letting his ally wear down the beastman first, a perfectly dishonorable and highly effective strategy. And down below, the old man continues his relentless assault on Folded Ear, who is rapidly running out of patience, his face contorted in a furious snarl, until he finally unleashes his fierce wind, a whirlwind of invisible cutting blades, catching the old man completely off guard, slicing him up as he scrambles to dodge. But as the sun sets over the ruins, the battlefield changes, because the growing shadows are the old man's home turf, and he grins, knowing the beast's safe zone is shrinking by the second. Far away, another team watches the northern horizon, their orders strict. If the red-haired girl returns, sound the alarm immediately. While back on the roof, the spectators critique the fight, noting the old man is safe as long as he stays in the shadows. And from that darkness he sees his opening, a perfect chance to strike, unleashing his authority to manipulate Folded Ear's own shadow, making it rise up like a weapon. Because he has figured it out, Folded Ear's wind attacks are tied to his body movements. And by controlling his shadow, he can make the beastman use his own claws to tear himself apart. But just as the killing blow is forced, Folded Ear unleashes a second kind of wind, a soft push that breaks the hold, his fist glowing with a new, swirling blue energy as he shatters the shadow's control, leaving the old man stunned, realizing his ultimate trump card just failed and his only option now is to run. At that very moment, Hina is walking back to town, annoyed that the bad guys she was sent to fight were already gone. A return spotted by the lookouts, who panic and try to warn their lord that his time is up. Down below, Folded Ear unleashes his ultimate attack, the giant power smash, shattering the very ground beneath them and trapping the old man on a floating rock with no shadows to escape into. And the shockwave is so immense it blasts the entire city wall in the distance, causing the lookouts to drop their precious warning scroll in the chaos. Making them realize it is too late, their only choice is to rush into town and warn everyone in person. Folded Ear looms over his defeated opponent, a smug grin on his face, holding a massive boulder over his head ready to finish the job, forcing the old man to pop out of a shadow, begging for mercy and trying to appeal to their shared boss. But Folded Ear just calls him cheap trash, annoyed that beating him costs so much energy before turning his attention to his next target, declaring it is time to settle the score with that new recruit. But the recruit's glowing green eye says it all. He was waiting for this. Wings of shadow erupt from his back as he calls down a storm of purple lightning, unleashing the vicious thunder in a blinding flash of energy, an attack Folded Ear instantly recognizes as the power of the eternal Demon King. But he does not hesitate, lunging forward with glowing red eyes. Just as his opponent activates his own innate talent, a crackling green aura called Celestial Body, and with a roar, Folded Ear heaves a massive chunk of the earth itself, meeting the divine lightning with raw, brutal force in a cataclysmic explosion. The wolf-like brawler Folded Ear smirks as he sizes up his opponent's glowing blue hand, who promptly unleashes a colossal crescent of energy that tears across the entire battlefield, forcing the team's commander to yell that the surprise attack has officially failed, while his green-haired ally worries about using his own big moves and accidentally taking out his friends. But Folded Ear is not waiting, already launching his own technique, a fierce wind-severing cut, sending a volley of invisible wind blades slicing through the air, which are immediately blocked by the team's tank, a warrior with a glowing golden shield screaming she's got their backs. And the plan shifts, 3 of them will pin him down while the heavy hitter waits for the perfect opening. A strategy Folded Ear sees through instantly, knowing they are avoiding kicking up dust to hide their secret weapon. So he zips right past the shield bearer, who is shocked his attack just missed, until a teammate with glowing purple eyes screams a warning that he is pulling the blades back for a pincer strike. The team cleverly uses wind-blown flower petals to track the invisible attacks. But he is one step ahead, hiding a single clean blade among the decoys and landing a nasty gash on his target. In the distance, another ally unleashes a tidal wave of green energy to turn the tide, a teal-haired warrior launching himself into the fray like a living tempest, crashing into the enemy lines in a blinding explosion of power, which prompts a heavily armored leader to send in his disposable troops, a whole horde of monsters charging forward in a mindless wave. And all this is just a distraction so the leader can safely locate the so-called evil dragon, a tactic that gets a hard nope from a hero with a glowing red blade who thinks wave tactics are a joke. He proves his point by summoning a literal sea of blood that floods the battlefield, sweeping away the entire monster army in a churning crimson tide, leaving the armored leader clinging to a rock, whining about his useless minions. Still convinced he is safe until a shadowy figure draped in blood asks, "Is that so?" That shadow is the evil dragon himself, powering up his vicious thunder technique, and the leader, now revealed as a skeletal demon, can only stare in utter shock, demanding to know who this guy is, only to get the ice-cold reply that dead men do not need names, a comeback that finally makes the demon's bravado crumble into pure panic. Just then, a blue-haired warrior drops in, announcing he does not want to miss the fun. Turns out he's rocking two innate talents at once, a white fog frost and a black flame, which he combines into a massive spiraling drill of death from above, forcing the demon to prepare a defensive sword technique. But our first hero is already bypassing his guard with a multicolored claw attack, while the blue-haired fighter weaves through the chaos at impossible speeds. And the resulting explosion leaves him wondering if they actually managed to land the hit. But it did not feel solid. The demon threw up a last-second wind barrier to protect himself, leaving him scarred and battered but very much alive. And as a spectral blue dragon forms in the sky, the demon snarls that he will just beat them to death with his bare hands, lashing out with a desperate, furious strike. Elsewhere, the great king is busy suppressing his own enemies with a devastating sweeping kick. Though a nimble, dark-clad fighter leaps in for a quick counter with a serrated sword, lunging forward with a blade crackling with purple energy, followed by a fist crackling with blue that connects squarely with the king's forehead, their raw power colliding in a shower of sparks. But the king roars suppress, and unleashes his own purple lightning in return, forcing his airborne attackers to dodge a massive, sweeping slash, at which point his subordinate calls in the entire army for backup, turning the whole battlefield into a chaotic free-for-all. Right as a green-clad warrior leaps high above the horde, sword raised for a killing blow, and the sheer power radiating from her makes her own allies sweat with fear. But the minions just laugh, mocking her for aiming so high she will miss entirely, a joke that dies in their throats when she unleashes a sweeping slash that carves a path straight through them. The great king uses the distraction to land a powerful blow on his main target, creating a momentary standoff as both sides regroup and prepare for the next clash. And in that brief pause, he finds his opening, his enemy completely exposed. A monstrous, shadowy form erupts from his body, covered in glowing green spikes, and his opponent realizes way too late that he needs to get his defenses up like yesterday, because the great king was just faking being out of power, now taunting them as he unleashes his true, life-severing fangs. The tale then shifts to a scholar's scroll, explaining the history of this land and its many ancient gods.